The unhappiest place on earth? I'm Michael Smerconish in Philadelphia. Friday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a law revoking Disney World's designation as a special tax district, which allows the entertainment giant to self-govern its 25,000-acre theme park. How Disney originally assembled that land? Great story, and I'll tell you in a moment. The Magic Kingdom now finds itself embroiled in controversy. Initially, Disney CEO Bob Chapek said Disney would take no position on HB 1557, the Parental Rights in Education, or as critics call it, the Don't Say Gay bill that was signed by Governor DeSantis. The bill prohibits the classroom discussion of sexual orientation or gender identity through the third grade in Florida's elementary schools. On March 7, Chapek told employees, as we have seen time and again, corporate statements do very little to change outcomes or minds. Instead, they are often weaponized by one side or the other to further divide and inflame. He said he did not want the company to become a political football. At that time, more than 150 companies had already signed a letter opposing the legislation. 2 days later, Chapek changed course. Amid widespread outrage from Disney employees and fans, he called Governor DeSantis to express disappointment with the law, and on the same day, at an annual shareholders meeting, he said, our original approach, no matter how well-intentioned, didn't quite get the job done. He further apologized at a town hall for staff on March 21. Then on March 28, DeSantis signed the bill into law. We've recently seen corporate activism on a number of issues: guns after Parkland, social justice after George Floyd, the perception of infringement on voting rights after a new law was signed in Georgia, and a boycott of companies still doing business with Russia after the invasion of Ukraine. Jeffrey Sonnenfeld is the Yale professor with the Golden Rolodex, the coordinator of many corporate actions on matters of public concern. I've often asked Professor Sonnenfeld whether corporations should be worried about anything other than their bottom line. He's told me certain situations demand a corporate response.
Well, the geopolitical context is absolutely critical part, of course, of a business leader's responsibility. You want to have faith in society, trust in free markets, and you want to have social harmony. As Alexis de Tocqueville, when he visited the U.S. Back in 1840, he wrote the book Democracy in America. He took a look at what really makes our system work. It was that the communities trust each other. There's a foundation that believes that it isn't just the tightness of the legal system, and he called it social capital. People think it's a recent term, and that's what business leaders have to work on, because they say it's as powerful as financial capital. And when some people say, to business leaders get back in their lane, I wonder, what lane are you talking about? The breakdown lane? It's absolutely critical for them to focus, and 80% of the American public is behind these moves.
But the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal sees a different lesson in Disney. Quote, there's a warning here to other companies, especially big tech and Wall Street, which are mainly based in liberal states but conduct business everywhere. If they try to impose their cultural values, they risk losing Republican allies on the policy issues that matter most to their bottom lines, such as regulation, trade, taxation, antitrust, labor law. The Disney lesson for CEOs is to stay out of these divisive cultural issues. The lesson for political partisans in the workplace is that their bosses run the office, but they don't run the country. Well, what a shame that today even Disney is subject to the partisan divide. But here we are. Whether Florida should have ever passed the underlying law, I say, is open to fair debate. I wouldn't want any teacher instructing any of our children on sexuality between kindergarten and the third grade. Then again, the law was poorly drafted, insofar as the word instructed was never defined. The preamble of the bill states that the aim is to prohibit classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity. But the actual bill states that classroom instruction by school personnel or third parties on sexual orientation or gender identity may not occur. If a young student asks a teacher why a classmate has two mommies, I think the teacher should be empowered to reply that family love comes in many shapes and sizes. Another legitimate debate is whether Disney should have yielded to employee pressure and taken a position on the matter. That's the Sonnenfeld Wall Street Journal divide. But about this, there should be no debate. When a state actor punishes a speaker, corporate or individual, for expressing a political viewpoint, they've brought the full force of government on the wrong side of the First Amendment. And I don't think that will stand if challenged. I want to know what you think. Go to my website at smerconish.com this hour and vote on today's survey question. Should Disney have taken a position on Florida's new education law? So how did Disney obtain the special tax status it has enjoyed for the past 55 years, which is now due to end in June of 2023? I'm reminded of the time that as a family, we took a backlot tour of Disney World when the kids were younger and were shown a plane with a fake company name on the side. We were told that Walt Disney and his brother Roy had flown it over Central Florida to anonymously scout the swampy land they were thinking of obtaining for an East Coast Disneyland. Starting in 1964, Disney used multiple shell companies to buy huge tracts of swampland at low prices from unsuspecting landowners, often in cash, to avoid a paper trail. They ended up with 27,000 acres. Walt wanted more freedom to develop the land, and the company petitioned the Florida State Legislature to create the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which would give them near autonomy. It was signed by Governor Claude Kirk back in May of 1967, and this is the law that allows Disney to construct new buildings and expand its parks without having to follow state or county regulations. Today, Reedy Creek includes 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, 1 sports complex, 175 miles of roadway, 67 miles of waterway, 40,000 hotel rooms, hundreds of restaurants, and retail stores. It has a permanent population of about 50 and its own fire department and board of supervisors. If the status does get revoked next year, there could be a financial consequence for local taxpayers. Joining me now to discuss is James Clark. He's a historian at the University of Central Florida who has written several books about the state, including A History Lover's Guide to Florida. Dr. Clark, thank you so much for being here. I love the story as to how anonymously they were able to do this land assemblage. Was their secret ever at risk?
No, they kept it extremely well for months and months. Finally, a reporter asked Walt Disney, could Walt be the one buying all the land? And he said no, that he had no interest in Florida. But there were 2 things he said that gave it away. One, he knew the annual rainfall for Orlando. And 2, he pronounced Kissimmee correctly. Everybody else in the world pronounces it Kissimmee. And the reporter immediately thought, something's awry here.
You know, I know when you walk down Main Street USA, there's retail on the ground level, and if you look at the windows up above, there are names of fake companies and businesses and so forth. Only now do I know that in some of the windows, you'll see Reedy Creek Ranch Incorporated, Bay Lake Properties Incorporated, I-4 Corporation, which apparently was a tip of the hat to Interstate 4. These are all sort of a remembrance, an homage of what you and I are talking about.
Right, and there are also names of people up there who were instrumental in the early days of Disney for being a dentist or being a doctor's office. So they do tip the hat to the past.
Dr. Clark, do Osceola County and Orange County want this to take place? Do they all of a sudden want to assume responsibility for what we're discussing?
No, this is a gift they do not want for a number of different reasons. First of all, Osceola County has some of the acreage, but almost none of the buildings. So it plays a very small role in this. Orange County is about 95% of this, and they simply don't want to take over this area. Disney does an excellent job. There are no potholes in Disney World. Their utility is among the best in the country. In fact, in 2004, when almost all of Central Florida lost power, Disney kept going. So they run a good operation out there.
Are the tax implications clear? Because it is a partisan football now, sadly, and I've heard each side try and make a tax argument as to what will happen when the dust settles.
Yeah, Michael, a month ago, the Republicans in Tallahassee were giving Disney whatever he wanted, and the Democrats were criticizing it. Now it's flipped entirely. The Republicans are punishing Disney, and the Democrats are praising it. So No one knows for sure. Disney pays about $60 million a year in county taxes, and they also pay another $150 million or so to support Reedy Creek. So that's over $200 million they are paying now. It could be that Disney saves money. It could be that Disney loses money. No one knows until it happens. The best guess, I think, is that the county, as they have done for others, will set up a special taxing district and give Disney back many of the powers it has.
It's amazing to me how people suit up in their partisan jerseys. If this were a progressive, a liberal governor taking on a corporate entity, I'm sure there'd be a complete role reversal. Here's my final question for you. Is this a fait accompli? You have educated me to the fact that this doesn't get implemented until, what did I say, June of 2023, and that's unusual. Explain.
Yeah, Florida laws go into effect July 1st, so all the laws passed in the legislature this year will take effect July 1st, except this one. It has to wait 14 months. And my guess is that during those 14 months, remember, Disney has 38 lobbyists in Tallahassee. They're going to be working to put this kind of back together again. Orange County is going to be working to get off the hook. And so I feel that by next July 1st of 2023, all of this will be behind us.
Dr. Clark, that was excellent. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
To be a Disney lobbyist in Tallahassee, that has to be like the epitome of job security these days, right? What are your thoughts? Tweet me at Smirkanish or go to my Facebook page, YouTube page. I'll read some during the course of the program. What do we have, Catherine? From the social media world, Disney chose its political path and now will pay the consequences. Well, I mean, to hear Professor Sonnenfeld say it, what choice did they have, right? If there aren't guardrails for us as a society, then there's no environment in which to do business. I'm more of the opinion, we can have the argument about the merit of the law. I already told you my view about that. We can have a separate argument as to whether Disney should have yielded to the wishes of its employees. But what about the First Amendment implications? This was retaliatory, right? I mean, would Governor DeSantis have signed into law yesterday what he did but for Disney speaking up? Why are conservatives wedded to the Constitution, not discussing that point? That's what I want to know. All I want is consistency. For goodness sakes, just be consistent. I want to know what you think. Go to my website at smirkanish.com this hour. Answer this week's survey question. Should Disney have taken a position on Florida's new education law? While you're there, register for the daily newsletter. Still to come, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Kirill, has expressed full support of Putin's war against Ukraine, despite the fact that it's killing many of the church's civilian parishioners. So what's behind this seemingly unreligious attitude? And this week, President Biden confused the issues of ending Title 42, which has kept the borders closed because of COVID, and fighting the judge who ended mask mandates. Well, he's not the only one struggling to square their position on mask mandates with border control, and I'll explain. Tomorrow, 200 million Eastern Orthodox Christians around the world will celebrate Easter. But this year, the church finds itself fractured over Russia's war against Ukraine, which has pitted Russian Orthodox church members against each other in battle because Patriarch Kirill of Moscow has fully supported President Vladimir Putin's invasion. Kirill is a major religious figure in Russia. He's repeatedly bestowed blessings on the Russian military, framing the war as a holy struggle against what he has called Western scourges, like gay pride parades. He has not condemned the killing of civilians, including his own parishioners. Some 400 Ukrainian clerics have signed a petition asking church hierarchs to label Kirill's support for the Kremlin as heresy. Another 300 priests, mostly inside Russia, have signed a petition against the war. The Orthodox Church is decentralized with 15 branches. The ecumenical patriarch of Constantinople, that's Bartholomew, has been openly critical of Kirill, telling recently a group of students he should not have identified so much with President Putin and even called Russia's war against Ukraine sacred. And Bartholomew told an interviewer it is damaging to the prestige of the whole of Orthodoxy because Orthodoxy doesn't support war, violence, or terrorism. Joining me now is Alenka Pevny. She's an associate professor of Slavonic and Ukrainian studies at the University of Cambridge. Dr. Pevny, thank you so much for being here. I've often heard Kirill described in similar terms to the Pope, but that's not entirely accurate, right? This church is much more decentralized. Can you explain?
Yes. So the difference between Latin Christianity and Eastern Christianity is that in Eastern Christianity, decisions are made by a council of patriarchs, and there are more or less national or regional churches. So, for example, you have the Greek Orthodox Church, the Romanian Orthodox Church, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church, and the sort of equal among equals, the ecumenical patriarch is the patriarch of former Constantinople, now the city of Istanbul.
Okay, so the parishes in Ukraine, are they taking direction from Kirill in Moscow or from Bartholomew in Constantinople?
So the situation in Ukraine is quite complex. So one of the things I would argue is that we shouldn't focus so much on Kirill. Kirill is clearly someone who is slightly deranged, and most of the churches have expressed their discontent with his leadership and the fact that he is making all of these statements in support of Putin. And so what you're having is individual parishes and priests and parishioners leaving the church. What we would want to see is more of these heads of churches, instead of just condemning the war, actually step out against Kirill and maybe expel him, for example, from the World Council of Churches. But the situation in Ukraine is that we actually have an autocephalous church. We have the Orthodox Ukrainian Church, which received its autocephaly or independence, which is formally recognized by the ecumenical patriarch, the Orthodox Greek Church, the Alexandrian Church, a number of other churches. And the head of, I'll stop in a second, the head of this church does not answer to Kirill. He answers to the patriarch in Constantinople, so to Bartholomew.
Right. So is the motivation of Kirill, I understand what you're saying, like, hey, don't give this guy too much attention, but he's playing a very important role as we speak. Is his motivation a land grab like it is for Putin? Putin wants Ukraine. Does Kirill similarly want that territory back for the church?
Yes. So Kirill has. So what we're dealing with a dying empire where we have the leader Putin in close association with the church. Right. There's almost no separation of church and state, and Kirill is Putin's right-hand man, and he sees all of the territory of Ukraine as canonically his. So what he's trying to do is land grab the parishes in Ukraine, because if you have parishes in Ukraine, you have more money coming in. So the situation is complex because the only legal church in the Soviet Union was the Russian Orthodox Church. When Ukraine declared independence, the Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine renamed itself the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. So now the Ukrainian government has required them to add of the Moscow Patriarchate, because many Ukrainians, when they went to their churches, didn't even know if they were giving money to Moscow, to the Moscow Patriarchate, or to the head of the church, the Metropolitan Epiphanius now in Ukraine. So now there's the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and then we have the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Muscovite Patriarchate. And it is the Church of the Muscovite Patriarchate, that is losing parishes by huge numbers right now during the war.
I think you've done an excellent job synthesizing a very complicated subject. I'll just take the final word because I want to make this clear. The Orthodox Church in America and the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia have both condemned the invasion. Thanks so much, Dr. Pevney. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Up ahead, with mask mandates morphing constantly, this week President Biden mistakenly answered a question about Title 42 and the border by talking about mask mandates. He's not the only one blurring the two. And this week, Ford ships its first all-electric version of America's best-selling vehicle, the F-150 pickup. Could it enable Ford to zoom past Tesla? The project's chief engineer is here to discuss her company's big gamble. Also, remember to answer today's survey question at smerconish.com. Go there now and vote. Should Disney have taken a position on Florida's new education law? It's mask confusion. Here in the city of brotherly love, the city has reversed its recent decision to require masks indoors. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles County, masks will again be required on all public transit, including buses, trains, taxis, and ride-hailing service vehicles. That's not the only inconsistency. On Thursday, President Biden was asked about whether he's open to delaying the rescission of Title 42, the Trump-era limitation on asylum seekers based on concerns about COVID. Instead, he responded on the subject of masks and public transit mandates recently struck down by a federal judge.
On Title 42, sir, are you considering delaying lifting Title 42?
No, what I'm considering is continuing to hear from well, first of all, there's going to be an appeal by the Justice Department, because as a matter of principle, we want to be able to be in a position where if in fact it is strongly concluded by the scientists that we need Title 42, that we be able to do that. But there has been no decision on extending Title 42.
On Fox, that mistaken Biden response gets played on a loop along with the handshake to nowhere and the Easter Bunny Wrangler. On MSNBC, it doesn't get played at all. But here's the thing in this case. I get Biden's mistake. For politicians, it's hard to know how to respond on these issues. Yes, science changes, but COVID demands consistency, and that has been in short supply. Title 42 was implemented by President Trump in March of 2020 in direct response to the pandemic. It's justified as a public health measure, which will limit the spread of COVID in our country. Something else intended to stop the spread of COVID, wearing masks in mass transit. But this week, a federal judge threw out that mandate. The Biden administration, relying on the CDC, has decided to appeal, meaning the administration sees a need for continued masking in transit. Well, which is it? Is COVID still such a threat that masks on airplanes are required? Because if so, then presumably we still need to limit asylum seekers who might spread the disease. But if we don't need masks on airplanes, then it follows logically that we no longer have justification for stopping asylum seekers on the basis of public health. Of course, if Title 42 goes away and results in a mass migration event, complete with film footage of migrants coming across our southern border, then it'll pose a nightmare scenario for Democrats in the midterms. Added to concerns over inflation and crime, it'll be a trifecta that guarantees that Republicans take control of the House and probably the Senate too. History and conventional wisdom are on the side of the GOP in 2022. But according to an analysis by my next guest, what follows in 2024 could be even worse for Democrats. In this piece at the Slow Boring blog, Democrats are sleepwalking into a Senate disaster, author Simon Bazelon has run the likely voting numbers based on the past several decades, and for Democrats, they're not pretty. Simon writes on Substack for Out of the Ordinary and is an undergraduate at Yale. Simon, thanks so much for being here. So with regard to the midterms, you say there's been a 9-point shift to the right. Explain.
Yeah, so, Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election by about 4.5%. And traditionally, the president's party in midterm elections gets around 47.5% to 48% of the two-party vote. And given current polling, and that polling average tends to decline as we get closer to Election Day, I think it seems reasonable to assume or to predict that Democrats are going to lose this national environment by around 4.5% this time, and that would represent a 9% swing to the right over these last 2 years.
Give me names. So who, therefore, is in jeopardy in the midterm who is currently a Democratic Senate incumbent?
Yeah, folks like Raphael Warnock, folks like Mark Kelly, even Maggie Hassan, Catherine Cortez Masto in Nevada also. Those are the four who are most at risk.
So with regard to 2024, here's what you have written. You've written that every Democratic senator in a state won by less than 2%, won by Biden by less than 2%, is likely to lose. And if you're right in this prognostication, that would be John Tester in Montana, Joe Manchin in West Virginia, Sherrod Brown in Ohio, Bob Casey in my home state of Pennsylvania, Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin, Kyrsten Sinema in Arizona. And for good measure, you add that races of Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow, Nevada Senator Jackie Rosen in Nevada would likely be toss-ups. Explain the logic behind that assessment.
Yeah, just to be clear, I think it's important to note that this is assuming that Democrats have a roughly average presidential election. Over the last 30 years, since Ronald Reagan, Democrats have won presidential elections by on average 2% of the vote. And right now, the correlation between the Senate vote for a Democratic candidate in the state and the presidential vote for that candidate is around 0.95. And the highest the correlation can be is 1. This is really, really close to 1. And so if you think that we're going to have a business as usual presidential election and Democrats are going to win by about 2% in the popular vote, then all the senators who are in states that Biden won by less than 2% are really going to be in danger.
Simon, what I think I hear you saying is that this is really not an issue-oriented analysis. This is you looking at historic models and then fast-forwarding to the way things should probably continue unless there's an aberration. Is that fair?
That's fair. I think it's important to note that there have been a couple trends in American politics over the last decade that have really intensified, and they're causing huge problems for Democrats in the Senate going forward, even beyond 2024, into the next decade as well. And the first trend that I want to talk about is education polarization. Over the last 10 years, we've seen non-college educated voters move very strongly towards the Republican Party, and college educated voters move towards the Democratic Party. And the Senate tends to overweight the votes of people who didn't go to college. And so this has created a bias in the Senate against the Democratic Party to the point where Democrats now need to win roughly 53% of the vote in every single election in order to hold a simple majority in the Senate. And this is a huge ask of any party and really puts Democratic Senate fortunes in a bad place.
I encourage people to read what you've written, but here's the takeaway. The takeaway that I'm gleaning is this looks like, meaning the midterm cycle, a tough year for Democrats for the reasons that I articulated. And you are here to say that what comes in 2024 could be even worse.
Right. And I think it's important to note that even with a pretty decent performance electorally by Joe Biden in 2024, a ton of these Democratic incumbents who got elected in years that were really good for Democrats, like 2006, 2012, 2018, are going to still be in danger.
Simon, I buried the lead. I said you're an undergrad at Yale. You're a freshman at Yale. That's unbelievable. That's right. Thank you for your contribution. I really appreciate it and wish you good things.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Checking in on your tweets and Facebook comments, YouTube, et cetera, what do we have? It will all depend on how the U.S. economy is doing in 2022 and 2024. Darryl, I think I made clear that Simon's analysis is really not issue-oriented. It's one that focuses on education models. It's one that focuses on the urban versus ex-urban or suburban plus divide in the country. But I must say it was an eye-opener. I'll put it in my social media. Follow me on Twitter and read what he wrote, because so many of us are fixated on the upcoming midterm election. But long-term, there's trouble on the horizon for D's if that race follows historical model. I want to remind you, answer this week's survey question at smerconish.com. Should Disney have taken a position on Florida's new education law? Still to come, do Elon Musk and Tesla finally have some competition? This week, Ford starts shipping its all-electric version of America's best-selling vehicle, the F-150 truck. I'll get the scoop from the chief engineer on the project.
One major thing that I still haven't told you yet. You guys ready?
Come on. No. What? No way.
So this F-150 prototype is all electric.
So, does Detroit finally have a worthy challenger to Elon Musk and Tesla's dominance of the electric car market? Next week, Ford will begin shipping the all-electric version of the best-selling vehicle in America, the F-150 pickup. The base version of the truck, called Lightning, can tow up to 5 tons with 425 horsepower, goes from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds and change. Its range on a charge will be between 230 and 300 miles, depending on the battery pack. The price, it starts at $40,000, and it will be the fastest F-150 Ford has ever built. Last year, Tesla nearly doubled its worldwide sales to almost 1 million. Although Ford sells 4 times as many vehicles overall, its sales fell 6%. And right now, Tesla is valued by investors at about 16 times what Ford is worth. So far, when it comes to U.S. electric vehicle sales, Tesla is completely dominant. In 2021, Tesla, which doesn't break down figures by country, is estimated to have sold more than 300,000 cars to Americans. Ford was in second place, selling just 27,000 of its electric Mustang Mach-E. Executive Chairman William C. Ford Jr., great-grandson of the founder Henry Ford, told the New York Times they are betting the company on the truck. By 2030, Ford hopes fully electric vehicles will be at least 50% of its product mix. Should Elon Musk be watching his back? Joining me now is Linda Zhang, Chief Engineer of the Lightning. Linda, so nice to have you back. I'm thrilled for what's about to unfold this week. A blogger wrote something online that I saw and said, the only way to get some among us to embrace a green initiative is to wrap it in a pickup truck. I guess that's what you're doing.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for having me back. I can't believe it's been almost a year since we revealed the truck, and we're really excited to be here today because we're prepping the vehicles to start shipping out to our customers. As far as the EV pickup truck, we expect it to really do well. I think this is definitely an inflection point in the evolution to EV vehicles. And when you wrap a pickup truck around the EV, what we're able to provide our customers with is the smartest, most innovative EV that really gets our customers the best vehicle that they can get. This is best-selling truck for 45 years in America, actually best-selling vehicle for 45 years in America. And when we electrified that vehicle, that is telling our customers, that American population, that this truck can be durable and usable for them.
Are the typical F-150 owners, if there is such a thing, because it is the most popular vehicle on the road in America, are they ready to go electric? Your market research must suggest that they are.
Absolutely. Our market research suggests that the pickup trucks customer is ready for electric, and you can see that in our reservations. We had over 200,000 reservations for the Lightning, to the point where we had to actually pause it back last year in December because it went so high. So I think with that, that's the proof that America's ready for an EV pickup.
Linda, you're the chief engineer, which is pretty cool. What is the design feature of which you are most proud?
Oh my goodness, this truck is just amazing. Like I said, it is so smart. We've got the latest digital experience, and it's only going to get smarter with time, with over-the-air updates. It's tough, just like any of our F-Series are, with being able to tow and haul, just like as you said. And I think what for me is the most exciting is really some of the new features. I mean, these are game-changing features that we're introducing into the product. For example, I mean, this power unit basically that you've got on wheels, being able to be a backup generator for our customers at their homes in a power outage, or even on the go as a backup generator on wheels, whether it's tailgating, construction sites, or camping sites. So just a lot of really great excitement in terms of those features, and even the Mega Power Frunk, this new space that the truck customer particularly has never had, being able to put 2 full sets of golf clubs in there, 400 pounds of whatever it is that you might want to put in there. Just a lot of excitement. I think those two are some of my favorite, as well as just the performance. I mean, this is the fastest truck, 0 to 60 in mid 4 seconds, and I think President Biden said it best, this sucker's quick.
Right. I remember watching him. I think he was surprised when he hit the gas. Hey, a final dopey question. I don't know how this works. So when they start rolling off the line this week, who gets VIN number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? There must be some historic precedent for that.
I don't have an answer for that one yet, but I'm really excited to be able to be there for Tuesday when we have our Lightning Strikes event, and we'll have more information to share then.
All right. Well, you listen, if you're the chief engineer, you ought to be in top 5, for goodness sake. Tell that great-grandson of Henry Ford, you got to be right there at the top of the line. Thank you, Linda. Good luck.
Thank you, Michael.
Checking in on your tweets and Facebook comments from the world of Twitter. What do we have? Are you thinking about trading in the Tesla for a Ford Lightning? No, I'm not thinking of trading it in. But I'm thinking about getting a Ford Lightning too, because I had an F-150 for 15 years. For 15 years, loved that truck. Yeah, I could definitely have my head turned by this, as you could tell from my excitement. Still to come, more of your best and worst tweets and Facebook comments, and we'll give you the final result of the survey question. Please go vote at smerconish.com right now. Register for the newsletter while you're there. Should Disney have taken a position on Florida's new education law? My hunch is big voting today. We'll see. It's time to see how you responded to the survey question this week at smirconish.com. Should Disney have taken a position on Florida's new education law? Survey says 73%, more than 20,000. A lot of voting, pretty decisive. Roughly 3/4 say, yeah, they should have taken a position on it. Well, you know my view. I gave it to you at the outset of the program. Here's some of the social media reaction. What do we have? Loved you're the unhappiest place on earth. I'm a gay mom of 2 young boys and agree that every point you made. I don't want teachers instructing my kids on sexuality, but I believe children ask and teachers should be able to reply with questions with love. Right. Lindsay David. Yeah, I mean, here's the issue. Do we want our kids instructed in a conventional sense on sexuality K through 3? By the way, nobody's explained to me, why do they stop at 3rd grade? I, as a parent, wouldn't want them through 6th grade at least, right? But you can't limit a teacher's response. I'll explain it this way. Have we not all had sons and daughters, nieces and nephews, grandkids come home with some kind of a stick figure image, sketch, painting of the family unit? I mean, it seems like it's a part and parcel of an education in the United States. Hey, draw your family. So if one kid looks at another and inquires about, I hate to use the line, but why does Heather have 2 mommies? The teacher needs to be able to respond. And the response is obvious. Oh, Heather has 2 mommies because families come in lots of shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's a mommy and daddy, and sometimes it's just a mommy, and sometimes it's just a daddy, and sometimes it's a mommy and a daddy. But guess what? Families are all about love. Now ask your parents if you want to know more. Next. That's it. So when Florida doesn't define instruction, they cue the whole deal. That's the answer. And as usual, it's somewhere in between. Did I speak too long? Oh, I did. Sorry. See you next week.
everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this Saturday. I'm Frederica Whitfield. We begin this hour with new attacks in Ukraine. Just moments ago, the port city of Odessa announced a Russian missile strike hit infrastructure facilities there. Details are still coming in. And we're also seeing what could be chilling new evidence of possible war crimes in Ukraine. Satellite images appear to show mass graves outside of Mariupol. An advisor to the mayor there says they do in fact show mass graves, but CNN cannot independently verify those claims. The discovery happening as the heavy fighting continues in the long besieged port city. An estimated 100,000 people, soldiers and civilians, still trapped. One small boy praying for a miracle.
I want to see the sun so that when our houses are rebuilt, we can live in peace, so we can live in Ukraine, because this is our native home.
And today, another humanitarian corridor opening in Mariupol as civilians desperately try to escape the fighting. Russia capturing dozens of small towns in the east. But UK officials say Russians have not made any major gains in the last 24 hours. This as Russia reveals its end game in the invasion. Top military officials saying they plan to take full control over southern Ukraine and the eastern Donbass region. Let's bring in now Scott McLean, who is in Lviv. So what can you tell us about these photos that appear to show mass graves?
Hey, Frederica. Yeah, so these pictures were taken in a village far to the east of Mariupol, about 10 miles or so, and they show this is an existing cemetery, and they show trenches that have been freshly dug. The earth has been freshly moved, and there are maybe about 45 yards in width, and there's several rows of them. Now, as you mentioned, CNN can't independently confirm what exactly these are, but the mayor's office is saying that these are, in fact, mass graves. And it is not the first time that we've seen this. Just a few days ago, there were a separate set of satellite images. These ones were to the west of the city this time, again, in a cemetery, but very freshly dug graves in very long rows. These ones about 80, 90 yards long. Each individual graves had been dug out, perhaps 200 of them. Now, officials in Mariupol, they say that the death toll could number 20,000, though in reality there is simply no way to tally the scale of the human cost of this siege on that city just yet. Frederica?
Scott, there's an evacuation corridor that is supposed to be open today. What are you learning about those possibilities?
Yeah, keyword supposed to. These things are really hit and miss when it comes to these corridors. So this particular corridor was announced by the Ukrainians. It is supposed to head to Zaporizhia, that is in Ukrainian-held territory, but already Ukrainian officials are warning that the Russians may try to push people in the opposite direction. They have not had very much success as of late in terms of getting people out of the city. The starting point for this humanitarian corridor, if people do manage to find it, is at a mall on the western edge of the city. That is a long way from the steel plant where the Ukrainian troops are having their last stand and where there are women and children sheltering underneath that facility. And there's new video showing just how deep people are underground. The children there, who, as you played in that clip earlier, haven't seen the sunshine in almost 2 months now. It is a very dire situation. The Russians, it seems, are simply waiting for them to run out of food, and people will eventually have to come to the surface. The difficulty, Frederica, for the people who may want to get on these humanitarian corridors, they're only allowing women and children, is that they're difficult to find because there is almost no communications in the city. I've spoken to people who managed to get out of Mariupol, but they went through Russia. And the reason that they said that they did that is because, well, they had no other choice. They went with what they had heard in terms of rumors. They went with their instincts, just trying to find any way out of the city. And at the end of the day, beggars really could not be choosers.
And Scott, there was more shelling in Mykolaiv overnight. How is this reflecting this new phase of this war that's targeting the southern portion of the country?
Yeah, so no casualties in Mykolaiv. There was some infrastructure that was hit. There have been injuries, though, reported over the last 48 hours in that city. There has also been strikes elsewhere in the eastern part of the country, and then those missile strikes that you mentioned in Odessa as well. Officials locally are saying that they hit residential infrastructure, saying that one person was burned alive in their car. And so You mentioned this new phase of the war, phase 2, that the Russians say began a few days ago. The goal, according to a military commander, is to fully be in control of the eastern part of the country, the Donbass region, and also the southern part of Ukraine along the Black Sea as well. That's significant because that would extend the land bridge that Russia already has, which connects Russia to Crimea, and it would go all the way to Moldova. Specifically, they would like to link up with a separatist part of Moldova called Transnistria, where Russian troops have been present since the 1990s. Obviously, that, though, is not going over well with the Moldovans. They summoned the Russian ambassador to make their displeasure very clearly known, saying that they're a neutral country, they're an independent country, and their borders ought to be respected.
All right, Scott McLean, thank you so much from Lviv. All right, many civilians have been forced to flee as Russia intensifies its campaign in eastern Ukraine. And for those desperate to escape, it's almost impossible to avoid coming under fire. But one brave Ukrainian is willing to face that danger and risk his life to help them evacuate. More now from CNN's Clarissa Ward.
It's a road few are willing to take anymore. But every day, volunteer Alexander Prokopenko makes the dangerous drive towards Russian forces in his hometown of Popasna to rescue fellow residents from the heavy fighting. They shell everything, he tells us. School buses, the Red Cross, anything that moves.
So why do you do this work?
I love my town and I can't leave it, he says. I can't leave the people here. Somebody needs to help people. He's hoping the rain provides some let-up in the relentless artillery. It's better for us, but it's worse for the road, he says. You can't see the potholes and the shrapnel from the shells. He arrives at the village of Kamyshevacha on the outskirts of Popasna. In the last few days, it has come under heavy shelling. Anatoly is now being evacuated with his son Vladimir. A neighbor shouts at us to show what the Russians have done. Those who stay here are now completely cut off from basic services.
So there's no electricity here, no water at all, and you can see they're actually collecting rainwater.
It's time for Anatoly and Vladimir to go. Their entire life now packed into the trunk of Alexander's car. Leaving the village, we spot a house destroyed by shelling. As we get out to take a closer look, a tearful Galina Nikolaevna emerges. She tells us it happened 2 days earlier. The first hit was at 5:50, and then there was a second hit, she says, and that hit my garage. She takes us around what remains of her home. The steady thuds of artillery can still be heard.
The roof is completely destroyed.
This is where the first shell hit, she says. Galina had just woken up and was lying in her bed when it happened. We have nothing left, she says. In the living room, she takes down the drapes that were hung to hide any light. This is how we tried to mask ourselves, she tells us. There's no need for them anymore. Galina and her husband still don't want to leave their home, but she understands that Russia's offensive here has only just begun, and it's going to get much worse. I lived until 60, and now I have lost everything, she says. Honestly, I have no words. For those like Anatoly and Vladimir who do leave, there are few good options. Alexander takes them to a dormitory in the nearby town of Bakhmut. They can stay 5 days for free. After that, it's up to them. In the next door bed, another couple rescued by Alexander tell us there is nothing left of their home. But they don't blame President Putin. Thank you, America, she says. It's a horror. It's a nightmare.
So it's interesting, she's saying that she thinks that Russia actually wanted to negotiate here And she blames America primarily for this war.
Putin wants to find a peaceful solution, her husband tells us. Please don't tell this bullshit to the whole world, Alexander says. It's not an uncommon view in these parts of eastern Ukraine, making the situation here all the more complex. Alexander says he evacuates anyone, whatever their political views. He knows there are still so many out there who need his help. Clarissa Ward, CNN, Bakhmut, Ukraine.
And for more information about how you can help humanitarian efforts in Ukraine, go to cnn.com/impact. Still ahead, new court documents reveal former President Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, was warned that January 6th could turn violent. Those details next. Plus, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis going after Disney, signing a bill into law that strips the company of their special tax status. But the financial impact may fall on the residents of neighboring cities. We'll discuss straight ahead. All right, new court filings from the House Select Committee show then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows was warned the rally on January 6th could turn violent. The filing quotes testimony from a former White House official close to Meadows, and it comes as the House tries to combat Meadows' refusal to testify in the Capitol Hill investigation. CNN's Marshall Cohen joining us now with more on this. So what can you tell us about these developments?
Fred, this was a pretty significant court filing late last night, 250 pages with new information about what Mark Meadows and the Trump White House knew in those critical weeks before January 6th. The big question has been over the last year, did anyone know? Did anyone know this was going to get out of hand? Did anyone plan for any violence? And now, as you mentioned, there is testimony from a former Meadows aide. She sat down with the committee twice in February and March, and she testified two big things: that Meadows was warned about potential violence, and that Meadows was told that that wild, ridiculous plan to have Mike Pence throw the election to Donald Trump at the last minute, that it wasn't legally sound. But yet they went ahead and did it anyway.
Wow.
They tried, at least.
Pretty potentially incriminating.
Well, there's a long way to go before that,
yes,
but this is not helpful to the Trump White House.
Not helpful at all. Meantime, you're in town, so glad that you are here. Also in town, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was testifying. You were helping to cover that. You were sitting right in earshot distance of it all. How striking is this?
It's a big deal. It felt like kind of a circus yesterday, over 8 hours in a courtroom just down the street here in Atlanta. But this is all about still January 6th and accountability. Some groups have tried to throw Marjorie Taylor Greene off the ballot, remove her from the ballot based off the argument that she's ineligible to run because of her role in the insurrection. The big question again, did she know about plans for violence? That was one of the first questions that she was asked under oath on the witness stand. Take a listen at what she had to say.
Prior to January 6th, Representative Greene, did anyone ever mention to you the possibility that there might be violence in Washington on January 6th, 2021?
I don't remember.
Okay. So it's possible that folks told you things could get violent in Washington on January 6th, right?
I was a brand new member of Congress. I don't remember those conversations, but I would hope Nancy Pelosi and those in charge of the Capitol were taking the Capitol security very seriously.
My question is just about whether anybody at all ever mentioned to you the possibility of violence.
So a lot of I don't knows, a lot of I don't remembers.
Her amnesia is striking.
Right, especially about some of her own things. They kept showing her videos and posts that she posted on Facebook and Twitter, and she said, I don't know, I have no idea. But, you know, it was part of a theme yesterday, Fred, about trying to distance herself from what happened on January 6th, while also amazingly still pushing some of the same conspiracy theories that fueled January 6th. Stuff about alleged fraud in 2020, which we all know did not change the outcome. Listen to what she said, still holding tight to some of those pro-Trump conspiracies.
You believed that Joe Biden had lost the election to Mr. Trump, right?
Well, yes, we saw a tremendous amount of voter fraud. We have investigations going on right now in the state of Georgia. There's investigations going on in multiple states.
Do you believe the FBI was behind the January 6th violence at the Capitol?
I don't know. I certainly think there's a lot to be investigated.
Yeah, she thinks, you know, it's ridiculous. Obviously, the FBI didn't do it.
Right.
So that case, huge hearing yesterday. Now we're all just going to have to sit and wait for the judge. He will issue a recommendation on the question of whether she's an insurrectionist and whether she should be disqualified. That should come in a few weeks.
And a lot is potentially riding on that outcome because there are other members of Congress who will be watching this very closely because they have to also examine what their level of participation may have been before, during, and after January 6th, as well as the former president in terms of whether they would be able to run again.
Absolutely.
If they had the same kind of involvement.
There was a challenge in North Carolina against Madison Cawthorn. That got thrown out pretty early. There are other things pending in Arizona against a few members there. But of course, these liberal groups and constitutional scholars that have funded this and laid the groundwork here, they've got their eye on the big prize, Donald Trump. If he does run again, you definitely can expect the challenge. And frankly, they'll have more evidence against someone like Donald Trump than they did against Congresswoman Green, who kind of was on the sides where Donald Trump was right in the White House calling the shots.
All right, we'll see if amnesia is contagious.
We'll see.
All right, Marshall Cohen, good to see you.
Thank you.
And especially in person. Welcome to
Pleasure.
Atlanta. All right, thanks so much. All right, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is stripping Disney of its special tax status. What this means not only for Disney, but for taxpayers in the communities surrounding the park. Next. Florida's feud with the Walt Disney Company hitting a new tipping point. Governor Ron DeSantis signing a bill on Friday dismantling Disney World's self-governing status. This after Disney objected to a law prohibiting schools from teaching young kids about sexual orientation or gender identity. The governor also signing a new controversial congressional map for the state. CNN's Carlos Suarez is covering the developments for us from Miami. Carlos, both of these new laws are expected to have major impacts on Floridians.
That's exactly right, Frederica. Good morning. The governor of Florida, he wasted no time in signing several bills, including two that target Disney, as well as that new congressional redistricting map that critics say diminishes the black vote in Florida. Now, the governor's map, the one that he designed, gives Republicans a chance at picking up 4 congressional seats later this year. Now, on Friday, a number of civil rights organizations, they filed a lawsuit saying that the new map violates the state constitution because, again, it diminishes the black vote in the state of Florida. Now, the legislature only took up this issue in a special session this week because the governor vetoed the map that they passed earlier this year. On the Disney side of things, the governor was able to get lawmakers to strip the company from being able to self-govern the land that Disney sits on in and around the Orlando area. Critics said that that move was in retaliation to Disney's criticism of Florida's Don't Say Gay law. Now, one big question out here, a looming outstanding detail in all of this, is what happens to that special district's debt, which is being paid by Disney. Democratic lawmakers have said that that money would be passed on to taxpayers. The other bill that dealt with Disney did away with an exemption that the company had on people that might be suing big tech companies over censorship. Now, the governor, he was in South Florida on Friday to sign all of these measures into law, and he kept up his criticism of Disney.
You're a corporation based in Burbank, California, and you're going to marshal your economic might to attack the parents of my state? We view that as a provocation, and we're going to fight back against that.
All right, so the move to end Disney's special district doesn't go into effect until June of 2023, meaning there is some time for both sides to hammer out a new agreement, including just how the debt is going to be handled. The governor also signed another bill that deals with some new restrictions that are being put in place for businesses and schools when it comes to talking about the issues of race and gender. And Frederica, a lawsuit against that measure was also filed on Friday.
All right, Carlos Suarez, thank you so much for that. All right, let's talk more about the Disney effect here. Here with us now, the tax collector for Orange County, Florida, which encompasses most of the Disney World property, Scott Randolph. So good to see you. So this is pretty complicated. Thank you so much. So this is pretty complicated, isn't it? I mean, this move to strip Disney of its special tax designation happened very quickly, but now we're learning it could shift a $163 million tax burden that the company pays for public services into local government. So how will Orange County make up for that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, look, normally, I mean, Disney's a huge contributor to the Republican Party here in Florida. I mean, normally, you know, if Tallahassee and Disney want to get into a fight, I would just sit back and, you know, pop some popcorn and watch them go at it. But now I represent 1.4 million people in Orange County that, like you said, may be stuck with a $163 million a year tax bill. You know, and on day one, when that special taxing district gets dissolved, one side of the ledger is going to say zero, and the other side is going to say negative 163 million. And Orange County residents are going to have to find a way to make that up.
Do you think the governor overlooked that little detail?
Well, that's what happens when you change, you know, a massive regulatory structure in 72 hours.
Mm-hmm. So help us understand what costs or services did Disney pick up with this self-governing status?
Exactly. I think there's some misperception that like Disney gets a special tax break or they're not paying their property taxes. Disney pays the same property taxes that everybody else does in Orange County. They pay their school taxes. They paid $40 million a year to Orange County government last year. And then on top of that, they paid property taxes to that special district, Reedy Creek, in order to provide services around the Disney properties, like firefighting services, right? Every time somebody had a car accident or had a medical incident, think about the millions of people that visit Disney every year. road maintenance, flood control. They had their own power plant, wastewater, drinking water facilities. All of that debt and obligation goes over to Orange County the minute that Reedy Creek is dissolved. There is no extra tax money that comes with that. So again, one side of the ledger will say zero, and the other side is going to say negative 163 million.
So then two things. Will the services, residents of those areas, can they expect those services that you just outlined, from fire to water, will those services change? And the second to that is, how much more are they going to have to shell out in order to receive those services that Disney used to be paying for?
Well, exactly. And look, Orange County government only has a few cards to be able to play to make that money up, right? I mean, they can't do a new taxing district because most of that land is in an incorporated part of the county. They can't, do special taxes or special fees on Disney to make that money up. So Orange County, we have a great mayor, a great team over there. I'm sure they'll do everything they can. But at the end of the day, again, it's going to be zero versus 163 million. So Orange County residents, I mean, if that gets passed along as property tax increases, then you're probably looking at a 20 to 25% property tax increase for the average resident.
Wow.
Now, if
that's
you're
huge.
a business in Orange County, yeah, I mean, it could, for the average resident, I mean, it could be $250, $300 a year, every year. Remember, this is like an annual ongoing cost. Now, that's just for a homeowner. If you run a business here in Orange County, you could be looking at thousands of dollars. The irony is, of course, is we also have Universal Parks and SeaWorld, and ironically, they could be paying tens of thousands of dollars more per year to pay off Disney debt.
Interesting. And so let's talk a little bit more about that Disney outstanding, debt. It's pretty substantial, right? Somewhere around $1 billion. How will that be absorbed into all this?
Exactly. I've seen anywhere from $1 billion to $2 billion. So I don't think anybody actually knows the actual amount. But right, it operates just like a municipal. I'm sure they bond it out to build roads, to build the drinking water facility, to build fire stations, those type of things. There's typical government bonds. All that comes over to Orange County. So all that is really known for sure is it requires about $58 million a year in bond payments. That's what they collect in order to service that debt. So Orange County would immediately have to find $58 million a year in order just to service that debt.
So we just reported, we have, when I say we, I really mean Floridians, you have until June of 2023 to work out any potential new agreement that may have come as a result of the signing of this. What kind of changes do you see are likely to happen before this were to take effect, especially now that people may be hearing this for the first time in this conversation from you?
Yeah, I mean, again, Orange County's hands are pretty tied. There's only so many cards. They have just a few cards to play. So any changes that would come would have to come from Tallahassee. So, Tallahassee, just sort of gave relief Disney of 160. Not really from Orange County. Again, Orange County's options are to try to find, maybe some revenue from, obviously selling water or back to Disney, or selling some power back to Disney. But that's not going to cover 163 million, right? Their only other card is property taxes, which they'd have to do across the board. So significant changes would have to come from Tallahassee, which is where all of this began at. So will Tallahassee fix it? And yeah, the implementation date's a year away, but what has this done for the business climate, right? I mean, even if they undo this, why, if you were a Fortune 500 company thinking about investing somewhere, would you come to a state that changed the regulatory structure in a 72-hour time period?
And so, Scott, I'm no psychologist, but I'm just detecting, just in your occasional snickering, it's not that it's funny, but it's almost like exasperation that I'm seeing from you. Is that right?
Yeah, and people, that's exactly right. Again, it's like you can't make policy like this in 72 hours. And I'm not here to say maybe Reedy Creek had outlived its usefulness. Maybe it did need to go away. But again, you need to look at the ledger that says zero on one side and negative 163 million before you start making these big changes like that. And now you've stuck Orange County with really an impossible task of making that money up.
Ooh, the last thing anybody wants to do right now is spend more money, right? Or get a bigger bill. for anything.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Scott
That's exactly
Randolph.
right. And Disney's talking.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. We got a little delay, so I'm sorry. I sometimes step on you. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And Disney was talking about moving 2,000 more jobs here from California. And I've got to think Disney may, reconsider that initiative.
Yeah, I bet a lot of rethinking is going on. All right, Scott Randolph, thank you so much. We'll be right back. On the eve of their Easter celebration, the Russian Orthodox Church is playing an important role in Vladimir Putin's war in Ukraine. Its leader is firmly in favor of the war. He has given public blessings to Russian generals and has been using much of the same rhetoric Putin uses to justify the invasion. Russia expert Tom Nichols writes in The Atlantic about his experiences of being an Orthodox Christian and watching the Russian Orthodox Church blessing the killing of Orthodox Ukrainians. Tom Nichols is joining me right now. It's so good to see you. I mean, you call Putin's invasion of Ukraine the messianic dreams of a small man, a frightened and delusional thug who believes that he is doing God's will. Why does he believe these things?
Putin's been surrounded for years now by nationalistic, right-wing figures and clerics and priests in the Russian Orthodox Church, including the Patriarch, who has a long history of being, to put it gently, very comfortable with the security services and with state power. And, was this the Putin of 20 years ago? Hard to say. I think he misses the Soviet Union. But that nostalgia for the Soviet period has translated into this notion, goaded on by the people around him, that he can restore something even bigger than the Soviet Union. He can put the Russian world back together under the aegis of Orthodox Christianity. And I think he genuinely believes it now.
And how did we get here? How did he get to this point? I mean, he didn't appear to publicly strengthen his ties until his third term in office. What was the catalyst for this change that you just stated, which really does solidify his power base?
Yeah, that's a great question, Frederica, and I'm not sure. I think part of it dovetailed with his personal interests of staying in power forever. Once he decided to go for that third term, I think like any gangster boss, he decided that he was safer in power. As Tony Soprano once said, guys like him don't retire. They end up in jail or dead. And I think that was a decision that was made easier by having the church say your rule, as the Patriarch said, is a miracle of God, and that you deserve to stay in power. But I also think when the Soviet dream finally ebbed away, and it took years, there was a vacuum in both Putin's regime and in Russian society that had to be filled with something else. And I think this messianism that's always been present in Russian culture has now reared its head in this kind of horrific synergy with Soviet imperialism, Russian messianism, and what I, on a personal level, consider to be the hijacking and utter grievous maligning of orthodoxy as the source of a war.
Is it really less about his belief and more about the rhetoric and how this is part of the brainwashing mechanism to lead people to believe that his intentions are all, based in religion and that he's carrying out God's work?
At some point, it doesn't matter anymore. That I think, Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorite lines from the great writer Kurt Vonnegut, is that we are what we pretend to be, and so we must be careful what we pretend to be. And I think that after enough years, with enough people around you in the bubble that Putin lives in, and that bubble has only gotten worse during COVID, where he's been in isolation, I think it's easy to believe that your interests, the interests of the state, and the interests of Almighty God himself are now all in unison, and that you're doing the right thing. And I think the inability of the people around him to sway him on any of this, if they tried at all, really, I think, testifies to that.
And then what's the explanation of the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, who is willing to call Putin a miracle of God? What's behind that?
Yeah, Kirill has always been ambitious. He likes the good life. The Russian Orthodox Church had to scramble a while back to try to airbrush out the fact that he walks around wearing $30,000 watches. I think this is greed an appetite for power. And also there's an internal feud in the Orthodox Church. Remember that a few years ago, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church split away from the Moscow Patriarchate, from Moscow's ecclesiastical control. And Kirill was furious about that. And so Kirill is acting like any other member of the Russian imperialist leadership. The fact that he happens to be a priest and doing it under the guise of religion doesn't change the fact that he's basically part of the leadership team that literally has blessed this war.
Willing to be bought, willing to be persuaded by gifts or money.
Well, I think it's not just being bought. It's that he's a powerful man. He enjoys being a powerful man. He doesn't like that the other Orthodox in Ukraine have broken away from Moscow's control. And I think he believes what Putin believes, that the Russians have a destiny to control the Slavic Orthodox world. There's no tension between opportunism and deeply held beliefs in this case. Both of those things are at work here.
So if Putin is able to use religion as, an aspect in starting the war, might that also be the gateway of potentially ending it?
One would hope, but I think it actually makes it more difficult to end it without some sense of a victory. If you begin a war believing that you are actually doing something that has existential importance, I mean, it would almost be easier to end this war if Putin were just making a land grab or trying to control gas and oil or coal. You can negotiate with someone like that. I think it's going to make it more difficult for him to climb down after all of this soaring rhetoric about, the Slavic world and our brothers and sisters and liberating them from Nazis. It's clearly happening. The Russians have been toning down the rhetoric even while they're amping up the violence. But I think part of the reason that world leaders have found him difficult to talk to about this, and several have put the Austrian chancellor, the French president, they have all come away saying, this guy you just can't talk to this guy. I think that's part of the reason. This kind of existential belief in his mission is partly what's making this war so difficult to negotiate Russia's way out of.
All right. Tom Nichols, thank you so much. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Still ahead, police found multiple guns inside the apartment of the shooting suspect who wounded 4 people in what they're calling a sniper-type shooting in D.C. Details next. Welcome back. The suspect in a shooting rampage that left 4 people wounded in Washington, D.C. is dead. CNN's Polo Sandoval is live in Washington tracking the developments. So, Polo, what are you learning?
And police have not identified that suspect that, again, was found inside that apartment. Investigators believe that he took his own life as they were closing in on his location. But really, Fred, just imagine what it was like not far from where I'm standing yesterday afternoon as a gunman about 5 stories up basically took aim at the sidewalk below, randomly shooting at people. Fortunately, though, investigators saying that the 3 people who were shot are going to be okay. The 4th person who was reportedly just grazed by a bullet also obviously going to be fine. But really, as sort of normalcy has been returning to this neighborhood, a lot of people still grappling with what took place here. The police chief saying that once they made their way in that apartment, not only to find the deceased suspect, but also what's being described as a sniper-type setup, complete with a tripod, about 6 different firearms, among them rifles and pistols, and also a large quantity of ammunition. So there's a big question here on investigators' minds as far as what this individual was planning. In terms of a motive, at this point, the police chief here in Washington, D.C. only said that his intent was to kill members of the community, and that pretty much says it all when you look at this method of operation here. But again, looking forward in the coming hours, not only we do hope to get an update on who this individual was that was found inside, but also what likely compelled them to open fire on random members of this community yesterday afternoon.
All right, Polo Sandoval, thank you so much in Washington. All right, this programming note, it's the unbelievable true story of the man who took on Putin and lived to expose the truth. The Sundance award-winning CNN film Navalny airs tomorrow at 9 Eastern right here on CNN.
Алло. Владимир Александрович, это Навальный Алексей вас беспокоит. Хотел узнать, зачем вы хотели меня убить.
Remarkably, Vladimir Putin faces a legitimate opponent, Alexei Navalny.
I don't want Putin being president. Я прекращу войну. If I want to be a leader of a country, I have to organize people.
The Kremlin hates Navalny so much that they refuse to say his name.
Passengers heard Navalny cry out in agony.
Come on, poisoned? Seriously? We are creating a coalition to fight this regime.
If you are killed, what message do you leave behind to the Russian people?
It's very simple. Never give up.
Navalny, tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
South Africa has historically been at the forefront when it comes to golf in Africa. On this month's Living Golf, we take an in-depth look at the game across the continent.
We take in the breathtaking views of Kenya's Vipingo Ridge Baobab Golf Course, where golf and nature converge like nowhere else in the world. Catch up with Trevor Immelman to look at the past, present and future of South Africa's best golfers. And sit down with Nigeria's Georgia Obo to see what it's like to be the country's first player on the Ladies European Tour. Welcome to Africa's only PGA-accredited golf course. The Baobab course at Vipingo Ridge in Kenya.
I think the interesting about this golf course is that everyone who plays it, they all say there's no hole that you sort of forget. They're all different and they're all memorable. It's a good challenge, it's a good test, but it's not too difficult. It's fun.
Alongside top-tier facilities, golfers here join some unusual company.
It's such a nice thing to be able to go play golf and you've got wildlife just around you. You know, it's not false, it's not a zoo, it's just, that's where they want to be.
This wildlife may seem to be at home, but it wasn't always this way. Originally a sisal plantation until 2004, it's since been transformed into a mixed-use development composed of residential and commercial properties, along with the course and wildlife sanctuary. Most of the animals living here are rescues, and in order to host these animals, the course had to prove it had the space, capacity and food for the wildlife.
The Kenyan government encourages more space for wildlife, and we encourage anybody who has large portions of lands to convert them into sanctuaries or conservancies. And one of them is Vipingo development here. The estate is 2,500 acres. They have allocated some 800 acres as a sanctuary and to have wildlife.
It's been a prolonged dry season this year, and the course has prioritized minimal greens watering to preserve water. And with the absence of predators, most animals are free to roam, munching on indigenous trees planted for their taste.
We try as much as possible not to control the movement of these animals and let them move on their own. We have a lot of bushes, let them go into the bush. We just allow them to be rewilded so that human interaction and that being close to human is a bit wears off a bit.
The animals aren't the only ones making themselves at home. At its PGA Academy, Vipingo Ridge brings top-of-the-line equipment to the next generation, training some of Kenya's top ladies youth players on site.
Technology in golf in the last 15 years has been dramatic. You know, the influence of technology, if you like. Understanding ground pressure, understanding kinematic sequence, understanding how to generate the most speed, which means you can hit the ball further, is, in today's game, it's key.
Looking to the future, this team sees opportunity to expand golf's reach.
Well, I think golf is growing in the region, and I think there's a general consensus that we need to involve more, a broader range of players. So starting with kids, for example, and the more people you embrace to come and try out, the more chance you've got of finding a champion, that's for sure.
As Kenya works to cement its place in the world of elite golf, Vipingo Ridge is looking to combine its future with conservation.
We have just introduced animals in Vipingo Sanctuary here, but slowly It can be a rescue center for also endangered species. For example, the gravy zebras are important because they're endangered in Kenya, they are few in numbers. So we want to encourage not only animals that are found in Kenya, but even animals that are being brought into Kenya which are currently endangered in our list.
Our intention is to create ultimately a breeding program where we can breed up stocks and improve gene pools with a view to then, in conjunction with KWS, reintroducing them either to the wild, into the parks, or to other sanctuaries and conservation areas like ourselves.
And moving forward, it's not just golf courses that can bring conservation to the fore.
Obviously, with the way the population is expanding, human-wildlife conflict is only going to go one way and get worse. So I think there's a lot of opportunity and scope for government to partner with developers, landowners who have land that they can commit to sanctuaries and conservation areas to create space for wildlife.
When thinking of golf development worldwide, the continent of Africa comes to mind as an untapped opportunity. And that's not just because of the sheer volume of land mass or population, but because of the heritage and legends like Bobby Locke and Gary Player. And among them, Trevor Immelman is constantly inspiring the next generation of South African golfers. The pride within South Africa and South African golf with its rich history, is that something that gives you an enormous sense of satisfaction that, you know, you were able to match some of your predecessors?
Absolutely. For me to be able to follow in those guys' footsteps, the Bobby Locks, the Gary Players, the Ernie Els, Retief Goosen, was fantastic. Those were the guys that I looked up to because they proved to me that somebody from our country could get it done, and could get it done multiple times, winning all the majors.
South African golf at its very best goes beyond what plays out in competition. Instead, it involves the passing of the torch between the country's greats.
And who was your immediate mentor, you know, as you were edging closer to becoming the champion that you dreamed of?
I had two, really. Fortunate to have two. First one is Gary Player. I met him for the first time when you know, I was 6 or 7 years old down in South Africa. He was actually doing an exhibition at my home club. At this point, I'm 13 years old. I'm already a pretty accomplished junior golfer. And he invited me to play with him on the opening day of the golf course. And so our relationship really started to develop from that point. And he took me under his wing and really treated me like a son. Extremely fortunate with all the advice and, you know, a kick in the butt here or there when I needed it. And the other one is Ernie Els. Kind of similar. He came and played an amateur tournament when he was still an amateur. He was 17 or 18 at the time in our hometown. And he was our Tiger Woods, really. And I just followed him around like a shadow. He must have been so sick of me by the end of the week, because I was never more than 2 or 3 steps from the guy playing this amateur tournament. So those two guys 100% paved the way, opened the doors for me, taught me really everything I know about the game.
After Immelman reached what many in the golf world consider the pinnacle of the sport with a win at Augusta National in 2008, he continued the tradition of nurturing homegrown talent.
So in many ways you opened the gate for the new generation of South African golfers, because, you know, there were a couple of great major wins not long after you. Surely they fed off what you achieved.
Absolutely. Those guys, after I won in 2008, they're 4 or 5 years younger than me. Absolutely, they were thinking the same thing. Hey, if Trevor can do this, I've played with him. I know that I can play with him. I've seen what he can do. Why can't I do this? I just need to believe in myself. And you know, that's the kind of stuff you draw on as an athlete. You need to find little edges that you can build your self-confidence with when you're isolated and on your own out there competing.
Among those rising stars, 32-year-old PGA Tour winner Erik van Rooyen.
Now I've had the chance to play with Ernie. I've gotten to know Trevor really well, especially with him being the President's Cup captain this year. Yeah, it really puts a smile to my face knowing that I saw those guys on TV and now I'm sort of friends with them and playing with them. So it's an absolute honor.
While Van Rooyen played most of his amateur golf in the US for the University of Minnesota, coming home to play on the Sunshine Tour was what ultimately sharpened his game.
It's an extremely competitive tour, so that's one of the reasons why I sort of went back there. You know, I knew it was going to be tough to compete, and that's really what you want to help push you to get to the next level. So, you know, I spent 4 years away from home. My dad kind of urged me to go back. I really wanted to stay. I thought I was ready to play PGA Tour, but looking back, I wasn't ready, and I needed to go a different route. And going back to the Sunshine Tour, that was the best decision for me. Like I said, there's a lot of good players. I think there's a lot of players that never truly reach their full potential because they don't maybe go play overseas. But it's a fantastic tour to start on, to learn how to be a pro golfer and eventually use that as a stepping stone to get to the next level.
For both Van Rooyen and Immelman, it's clear they believe, given the right access and nurturing, the sport can only grow across the continent.
And Africa as a continent, it's so vast. You know, in some ways it's an untapped resource. Do you see green shoots in other countries within the continent?
Yeah, I sure do, and I'm excited about it. Look, for the most part, over the years, it's been South Africa and Zimbabwe that have flown the flag for Africa from a golf standpoint. But yeah, as the game starts to become more accessible in the rest of Africa, we've seen in all other sports the amount of natural talent that comes from that continent. There's no doubt in my mind, as we be able to start to roll out the access to people all over, we're going to have more and more great golfers coming from Africa.
I think we have a long way to go to get to a place where we can all be like, okay, we've now opened the doors of golf to a broader audience. I think we're on the right track.
Welcome back to Living Golf. Now, while South African players have long held a place amongst the game's elite, golf is still a considerably new sport across the continent of Africa. In Nigeria, those who are passionate about the sport have been driving initiatives that they hope will bring the game to the greater masses. And for someone like Georgia Obo, who's the first player of Nigerian descent to play on the Ladies European Tour, her success is really just the start of a brighter future for golf across West Africa.
Born in Manchester, England, Georgia Obo picked up the sport at a very young age, and with encouragement from her father and grandmother, she began playing, winning, and loving the game.
I enjoyed the challenge. The best part at that time for me was competing. So for me, it was just competing and collecting trophies at the time, but I loved it, honestly.
So did your handicap topple down very quickly as an amateur?
I think so. I was probably one of the youngest in the area to get a handicap at about 7, if I'm correct. So I actually was the youngest to participate in the English under 13 for girls. So I was 9 at the time, and I think my handicap was about 18 or so. So it's been a great experience, really. I had the determination to just go out there and want to win, so I just kept on improving.
After numerous competitions in the UK, she won the US Kids Championship at age 14, with her last event as an amateur at the 2018 Youth Olympics in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Oh, that was a great experience, representing Nigeria in Olympic Games. Really, when people say, oh, there's nothing like an Olympic Games, I understood after competing there. I was able to watch the athletics event and cheer on my fellow Nigerians, and we were able to score a gold and a silver. So overall, it was a great experience, and looking back now, a lot of the competitors in the golfing discipline have now turned professional and are very successful.
We caught up with Obo at the Saudi Ladies International, where she not only wears her heritage on her sleeve, but hopes to drive the message of opportunity in Nigeria.
The truth is, in Nigeria, we love, when we have tournaments, they're always big. When we have opens, they're always big. We enjoy the social aspect of golf. Yeah. So to convince someone to actually do a golf tournament is not the issue. It's just to convince them to do a professional golf tournament. That is where more needs to be done. We are improving every day, learning more and getting stronger partners. So I foresee probably in the next 5 years that we'll have several professional golf events in Nigeria on the world stage.
Players like Obo aren't the only ones who want to see golf take off in Nigeria. Others involved in the game include caddy Abimbola Olakanye, who wants to inspire and include potential new players to the game by first giving them a shot.
We are here at Cross Creek Golf Club in Ilado, Akure, Ondo State, and we're actually setting up a chipping green for the kids, and we have a putting green there for the kids. And this is the most important aspect of golf because putting is very critical. You have to go back and you have to make sure you follow through, you see?
Professional caddy Bibi Olakanye found the passion and patience to take on one of the most important aspects of the sport, growing the game itself.
And I feel like by passing the knowledge along to the younger ones, it makes them good members of their family, then they can become proper kids in the society, but pretty much encourage them to do the right things.
Bibi, as he's known on the course, has caddied for more than 16 pro golfers on several tours. His love for the game began at 17 when he picked up his first club while attending high school in the US. Now he plans to build the first chip and putt in his hometown, about 300 kilometers east from Lagos.
I believe that the shot game is the most important aspect of golf. Turn and hit the ball. Keep your eyes on the ball. Beautiful. I've been working on my project now for roughly 4 years, and I decided to come back to Nigeria to teach golf to kids so they can pick it up, simply because I feel like golf is a sport that they can run to.
For now, Bibi hopes programs like his will become a catalyst for broader initiatives within the country to mold the future stars of this West African nation.
I would like to see them help fund public facilities for the kids, and pretty much grow golf the way it's supposed to be grown. If you look at it, the projection of Nigeria's population in the next 30 years, we are going to be moving to the third largest country in the world. We are asking the RNA, the USGA, the PGA to help develop golf, the IGF, International Golf Federation, to help develop golf properly. I'm funding a lot out of my pocket. I feel like, you know what, I get satisfaction from it because it's my passion. Hopefully, you know, something good come out of it later on down the line.
It's time to close out our episode with a look at what's driving the shifting demographics of golfers hitting the links across South Africa.
They call themselves the Saturday School.
This group has been together for more than 10 years.
19 members strong.
It's so wonderful to be part of a crowd that is so well put together.
On weekdays, they're in the boardrooms.
I see myself as like being on a treadmill Monday to Friday.
But come Saturday morning, there's only one place you'll find them.
And one of the areas where you would be able to create a lot of relationships for yourselves and networks and connections is in the sport of golf.
Golfers in South Africa have it good. About 150,000 players tee off on more than 450 courses countrywide. And with roughly 2,500 hours of sunshine and average temperatures around 18 degrees Celsius, it's a year-round pastime. Today, the face of South Africa's top country clubs are becoming more demographically diverse.
People also need to have heroes. So I would think that without any doubt, without any qualification, I think that Tiger Woods' success in particular drew a lot of people who are black into that particular sport, without any doubt.
While the sport has traditionally been played by white South Africans, it's a fast-growing sport among the country's black upper and middle class, for a different reason.
Here, the higher you go in your job, it's no longer about your qualifications and how good you are. It's actually about people relationships.
I learn a lot, okay? And that to me is the value that I'm getting out of this thing, that cross-pollination of ideas and thoughts.
So if you look at my group, so we've got what I consider to be the movers and shakers. You've got banking executives, you've got captains of industry, some of the top minds as far as brand and advertising is concerned, and the next generation as far as agriculture and engineering is concerned.
You need a legal opinion from someone, you know who to call. You're doing a deal and you want to check if all the paperwork is good, you know who to call.
The Saturday School play their golf at the exclusive members-only Johannesburg Country Club. Tubung Magare is the club's vice-captain.
The who is who of industry in this country walk the same fairways as me, end up on the 19th hole, which is the country club, and I have the privilege and the honor of being able to interact with these individuals.
If you put together a particular game because you wanted to discuss something specific, the 19th hole is where you should be able to convert this.
So I've had an opportunity to do business with a variety of the members in this group. And then, of course, I'm not going to get into the details of some of the deals because There are 19 guys. Now somebody's going to, oh, so you did business with that one. So why didn't you do business with me?
Another prestigious club, the Royal Johannesburg and Kensington Golf Club, or just plain Royal as it's referred to by its members, is seeing a similar trend.
We definitely have seen an increase of golfers and different demographics of golfers coming together and cutting that business deal or having that meeting on the golf course.
The ripple effect goes beyond the C-suite, with some executives encouraging their children to take up the sport.
Clearly, if your dad was a golfer, most likely, you'd play as well.
It's a very diverse grouping of younger members that are joining, not necessarily on the golf course itself because they are very young, but at the driving range and at the practice facilities. They're embracing the game of golf, where Saturday mornings we've got groups of kids aging from 4 years old through to 12 years old. It's so wonderful to see all these younger players coming through, and these younger players of great talent and enthusiasm that is very good for South Africa.
Regardless of age, it's clear the love for the game is being driven to new heights.
A bad day out here on the golf course is much better than a good day in the office.
This is what a vacation looks like. impressive. Just moves, just seems so at ease. There's a frisson, an atmosphere. I'm loving Buenos Aires. There is something different about Buenos Aires and Argentina. I can feel it. I can see it. Take, for example, this beautifully restored and lovingly kept railway station from a different era. Well, what is the essence of the difference? Is it because of the immigrant past, predominantly from Europe? Or perhaps it's the geographical remoteness. Argentina's way down in the southern hemisphere. Whatever the difference, I don't think it matters. It calls to be discovered. The difference that is Buenos Aires can be discovered in many guises. But I think nothing speaks to the sexy, smouldering, intense, yet fun feel of the place than its national dance, the tango.
Let's go backward with your right.
Tango can be formed anywhere.
And close.
At least in Horatio's Godoy's world, where the dancing goes hand in hand with that other religion, football.
Do you know who's him? Maradona.
Oh,
Diego Armando Maradona. This is our God. You know, when we are talking about Diego, we have to say, oh, San Diego.
Yeah.
Yes.
You forget who you're talking to.
Yeah, I know.
You're talking to a Brit.
I know.
The hand of...
I'm so sorry.
The hand of God, please.
Yes.
Let's stick to tango where we might agree. Horatio has brought me to La Bocca, the city's original port. Here, waves of Italian immigrants arrived at the start of the 20th century. Here is where tango began.
I think people need to have something in his life in the new space. And people start to dance because they want to have something with ladies, you know? But you cannot dance with ladies 120 years ago. So you have to practice with men, you know? Only men. Here we are. Yeah, because the lady will be in this position.
What about, does that mean right-handed or left?
Yeah. Otherwise, you are in the role of the lady. Okay. Here we go. Side and close. You did it.
Right.
You did it.
Add women, and what started as a poor man's dance became a sensation worldwide. More racy than the foxtrot, less formal than the waltz. Tango became Argentina.
So it's like a tango is excuses to don't be alone, to be with people, to have friends, to have girlfriend, boyfriends, everything, because it's a link.
A link to what?
A link between humans.
This elemental attraction cannot be ignored in Buenos Aires. Within moments, this too left-footed dancing disaster has to move. Give me some basic steps.
Left, forward, together, left, forward.
This is really tricky, but it's great fun. Singer! Bravo! Right. I think it must be time for lunch. Let's talk about Buenos Aires. Argentinian. Am I being fair? Argentinians think they are better than others in South America.
In the world. We think that we are the best in the world.
You believe it?
Yeah, I don't.
You
I
do?
don't. I don't. No,
You
I don't by myself.
I can see it in your eyes. You secretly are saying you've recognized that we are the aristocrat.
And normally, you know, in South America, nobody likes our Argentinians. I'm mostly from Buenos Aires.
Why not?
Nah, because you know, it's like in Europe, like Paris. You know, the French people that they suppose that they are more than the rest of the Europe. In Argentina, it's the same.
You're shameless. You admit it. You admit it.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Maybe he's right. After all, Buenos Aires was known as the Paris of South America. So to the tango test. Is this dance as popular with the young, the old, the good, the bad? And will they turn out on a Sunday night at his club?
Where's Richard? Come on, my friend.
I am not a novice, I am a joke, but one who's loving the laughter and feeding off the infectious enthusiasm all around me. You know that phrase, it takes two to tango? Well, they've obviously never been to La Baruta. There's dozens. It's an impressive evening that starts with classes and goes all night, Argentina style. I've always loved ballroom dancing, waltzes and foxtrots, but to be in Buenos Aires and see true tango classes, I'm not even at the starting line. I shall have to content myself with this. Outside the school, they've even got the instrument. I'm in a cemetery. Well, that's technically correct, except the Recoleta is more than a place merely to bury the dead. It's a place to remember, revere, celebrate, and ultimately prove you may not be able to take it with you, but you can spend lavishly to prove you're dead. This is really spooky.
Yes.
I mean, you can just see the old coffins.
It's better seen outside because they are very beautiful. We are going to see the tomb of Eva Perón. She's one of the most important figures in our history.
Evita, the actress turned politician turned icon, whose life story was memorialized in the show and the movie and the song. Ah, yes, that song.
Don't cry for me, Argentina.
All I can think of is
Oh, that song.
That song.
That song is most popular for foreign people than for Argentinians.
Really?
Yes.
Da, 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 da,
But of course we know it.
Da, 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 da. You can't help it. Every time I think about it. The historian Camilla Peroshenna is helping me navigate this sprawling cemetery.
Where are you, Evita?
Where is it?
We are almost there.
I'm expecting some massive, you know, larger than life.
You will be disappointed.
Even though Eva Perón entranced and enthralled a nation, her resting place is not easy to find. There are no signposts.
Ah. Here she is.
Interesting.
Yes, it's the only one that has got flowers.
What is this one?
This was put 30 years after her death. It says, don't cry. No me llores perdida ni lejana. Don't cry for me, for my loss, all the love and the pain.
Right, so this is basically Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
Yes, that is a kind of Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
On her tomb?
Yes, and she says...
She never said it, of course.
No.
So, the musical, the movie,
Yes.
Don't Cry for Me.
Well, it's a good expression because when she died, everybody cried. When she died, we have one of the most important funerals that we had in history.
Sure. There is an irony here. The generals and elite who despised Evita, initially having her body buried overseas, they are also buried in Recoleta, but nowhere near the same numbers of people come to see their tombs. Eva Perón is the star of this cemetery. Why do they want to keep adding things on? I mean, this is 1982, this is also 82, this is 1997.
Yes.
The workers are 2002.
Yes.
They won't let the poor woman rest.
We don't live in the past, but we talk always about the past, and we love the past, and we discuss about the past, and we always have fights when we are in a dinner or whatever about our past, about Perón, about the revolution, about the military dictatorship. So we keep on talking about the past, and the past is very present in our everyday life.
Whether Eva Perón was a pawn in her husband's politics or a true social revolutionary, a visit to the Ministry of Health proves she's as popular as ever. Here you have Evita looking south towards the poorer, less privileged areas with a smile and the largesse for which she was known. And then on the other side of the building, facing the northern suburbs, the richer, wealthier parts of the city, campaigning, hectoring, calling for social change. From the polo fields of Argentina a game brought here by the British to the very large clock tower in the heart of BA. All evidence of Argentina's European and specifically British past. People from the UK came here to help develop the country. And those immigrants donated this mini Big Ben, and it became known as the Torre de los Ingleses, the Tower of the English. Those relations were destroyed in the early 1980s with the war in the South Atlantic. In 1982, I was 20 years old, a student finishing university. I remember the war very clearly. The man I'm about to meet was also 20 years old, but he was a conscript in the Argentine army, and he was being shipped off to what he calls the Malvinas.
I had no practice. I had only 1 day rifle practice, and I never thought they would send me. So I told my mom that morning having breakfast, they're not sending me, I'm not a soldier. A week later, I was huddling in a peat bank at the foot of Mount Longdon, one of the fiercest battles.
Michael Savage is proudly Argentinian, the product of Scottish and Irish grandparents, born here in Argentina, and one of whom even fought for the British in World War II. While I was safe and a student, Michael, untrained and ill-supplied, was one of thousands of conscripts sent by Argentina's then military government to invade what I call the Falklands. I remember the night the Sheffield was sunk.
Ah, yes, that was shortly after the Belgrano was sunk.
And
so it was like England won, Argentina won. Like a football match.
I'm not here to rehash the war. I want to see it through Michael's eyes, on opposite sides. I believe it will help me understand why nearly every Argentine still has such an emotional connection to the islands. Perhaps because of stories like his.
We look like prisoners of our concentration camp. I had lost 22 kilos and my friends more or less the same. We had one that died sleeping one night of exposure.
And once the fighting began?
Yes, I kept asking myself, what the hell am I doing here? There should be a professional soldier here, not me.
Eventually, Michael was taken prisoner and then repatriated to Argentina aboard a British cruise ship. He remembers translating for his troops and meeting a regiment of British paratroopers who they had just fought against.
I thought there would be a fight on the ship, but I was surprised by 2 or 3 paras talking with 2 or 3 of my fellow conscripts. They talked about football, they talked about music, the British bands, Genesis, Pink Floyd, Supertramp, and they talked about girls, conversations that 20-year-olds have normally. And that made me understand that wars are anonymous. When you engage into a face-to-face human exchange, the war would be impossible.
Yeah. It is in that spirit that Michael and I visit the memorial to the 649 Argentinians who died fighting in the war. I pay my respects to them and the 255 of my own countrymen who perished on the field of battle. No matter how many memorials are built, how many never agains are said, war, it seems, won't go away. It is the other sound of Argentina. Rivaling tango in the national psyche. An hour out of the capital, and I'm amongst grazing cattle, where the famous beef is reared on the pampas grass plains.
Well, my grandfather bought the farm in 1934.
1934?
Yes. So since then it's in our family. And, well, my father insists to keep it.
Yes.
And so, well, we had to keep it.
Of course, Eva Boleque kept El Umbo as her ranch, or estancia, as it's called. Today, 4 generations on, there are now 2 sources of income, those on 4 legs, and more profitably, those on 2.
I like my cattle, but the most important thing are you, the tourism.
So the cattle and the guests.
Yes, yes.
The important paying guests, like me, come here to see a different way of ranching, one that is steeped in Argentinian tradition, honed by the Spanish and indigenous gauchos who tamed this land. Eva's son Pablo grew up on the farm. We're doing it his way, the gaucho way. It's not a traditional saddle, is it?
No, no.
What's the difference?
Yeah, it's like a sofa, but really when you have to work all day on a horse, it's very comfortable.
Hang on, comfy? I'll settle for merely staying on board. So where is my trusty steed?
I have a horse for you.
This horse?
No, we have Rose. Tráeme Rosa nomás.
What's wrong with him?
This one is Ramon's horse. This one.
Sorry, Ramon.
This one is your horse, yes?
Oh, this is looking a little more traditional, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a different saddle we call Lomillo. It's very
for
comfortable.
beginners. Come on. And we have gone back to exactly where we started. Maybe it's the cattle, maybe it's the horse. It could be my compadres. I'm feeling gaucho. It's beautiful. Absolutely glorious. Forgive me, quest means business after all, so I appreciate that it was the gauchos that created the wealth that grew Buenos Aires, and thus placing Argentina amongst the wealthiest nations in the early 20th century. My horse Rosa knows little and cares less of her grand economic place in history. I'm on a horse, and I know who's in charge. The horses here are pretty much encouraged only to walk and then gallop. Usually in the wrong direction. You are not going home. There you go, come on. Let's go and get some cows. Yeah, there we go.
Vamos.
Look at that.
Here, the Argentina like the ribs. If you do a barbecue here in Argentina, the people, they want this.
I'm a true city dweller, sometimes squeamish about the fact the cow I was wrangling yesterday is on the grill tomorrow. I don't want to start a worldwide debate, but here's the beef. And is it the best in the world?
Pork sausage. Here we have some blood sausage. We have the chicken here. If you go to any house here in Argentina, they're going to have maybe something small like this one, but they're going to have this system, no? In general, when I have friends and we want to be together, they call me and say, you want to have an asado today? Just asado means just come to my house or something like that and we share the moment, yes? That is very typical.
I want steak. I want steak.
One.
Ah.
And here we have the steak.
Now we're
you
talking.
like that.
And so to the test. Does the best beef in the world come from Argentina? Grass-fed, lovingly raised, beautifully butchered, perfectly cooked. I don't know whether the best comes from Argentina. But it's bloody good. The estancia is a fundamental part of Argentinian history and life. Maybe far removed from today's living, but coming here has widened and deepened my understanding of this tremendous country. A trip to the estancia is the perfect way to end a visit to Buenos Aires. And so to the word that describes all of this. I think it is invigorating. To be sure, Argentina has its challenges, but there is a natural wealth and a human warmth that must be experienced. So you will want to come here and be invigorated for yourself. Buenos Aires, no doubt part of our world of wonder.
Another career milestone for Cristiano Ronaldo, where the stats simply did not matter today, though. The heartbreaking goal celebration after a devastating last few days for the Portuguese superstar and his family. We'll reflect on another record-making, groundbreaking day for women's sport. Just ask any Barcelona fan. And it's your move, Magnus, our one-on-one chat with Norway's chess grandmaster, why defending his world crown is far from certain, and now he's been telling us the reasons why. Hi there, welcome to All Sport. I'm Patrick Snell. It has been a truly heartbreaking week for Cristiano Ronaldo, his partner Georgina Rodriguez and their family. This after the devastating news the couple's baby son, one of their newborn twins, had passed away. On Friday, the Portuguese taken to Instagram to reveal Rodriguez and their daughter had returned home. Ronaldo also expressing thanks for the global outpouring of support, adding, "Now is the time to be grateful for the life that we've just welcomed into this world." Well, early today, a highly emotional return to action for Ronaldo against Arsenal. Man United's number 7 also applauded by fans of both teams in the 7th minute. That was wonderful to see. His 100th Premier League goal, but that, I'm sure, far from his thoughts. Just before the hour mark in this one, a crucial penalty miss from United's Bruno Fernandes, whose team still had at least in North London. The vital 3 points then for the Gunners as United's woes continue. Elsewhere on this day in the English top flight, defending champions Manchester City strolling to the 5-1 victory over relegation-threatened Watford. 4 goals, just the 4 goals from Brazilian side Gabriel Jesus earlier. Newcastle cruising to victory themselves at doomed Norwich City. Atop the Premier League standings, we can see Arsenal's win has them in 4th right now. United currently 6 points off the top 4. City's lead now extended to 4 points over title rivals Liverpool, who host 4th from bottom Everton in the Merseyside derby Sunday. Vital match for both teams for very different reasons, though. All right, let's bring in our senior sports analyst, Darren Lewis. Darren, thank you so much for joining us today. After everything Cristiano Ronaldo, his partner Georgina Rodriguez, the whole family have been through, the fact that he even played today, how do you reflect on it all?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a centurion today. You've done the numbers, 100 goals for Manchester United, Patrick, in 223 appearances. Actually very impressive, almost a 1 in 2 strike rate. But as he and his family still come to terms with the devastating news of midweek, I'm sure the trivia of football will have been the last thing on his mind. But he did acknowledge the compassion shown by the Liverpool fans who put their rivalry to one side on Tuesday night to give him a minute's applause in the 7th minute of that game. One world, one sport, one global family. You might remember he said in his statement after that, as he thanked them. And Ronaldo saluted again today, as you've been saying, this time by the Arsenal fans in a moving tribute in the 7th minute. I've got to say, Patrick, you know, I've seen and we've talked about here on the show many moments and times in football when we've deplored the sport, quite frankly, but I think at times like this, you're reminded that there is a basic compassion among fans within the game. It's really heartwarming to see.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The reception he got at Anfield, you know, he wasn't playing on that occasion. Absolutely heartwarming. And again today, the global football community coming together, right, as a person, wonderful to witness. All right, I have to talk about United as a team. Shambles again, especially defensively. Their new manager, Erik ten Hag, can't arrive soon enough, surely, can he? What must he be thinking right now?
Well, Patrick, if he has any sense, he'll run a mile. Look, he'll have seen again today that when he finally arrives, he will have to be ruthless with his decision-making. United not as poor as they were in that 4-0 defeat to Liverpool on Tuesday night. And that was comfortably the worst performance I've seen by any team all season. A display so bad, Patrick, that in my opinion, I think it was actually a lack of respect for the interim head coach, Ralph Rangnick. But today there were basic errors again. There was a lack of organisation again. There was, and you're seeing the numbers there, they could actually get to the Champions League. I'll talk about that in a second. But today, I just felt that some of the players involved either no longer good enough to be at the club or not committed to the club. They're refusing to sign new deals and allowing their contracts to run down. And the most striking aspect of all of this, and where the club is right now, well, we just saw it on the screen a second ago, they're still able to qualify for Champions League football if they were to focus enough to put a winning run together. Instead, there are inferior teams around them putting together superior sequences of form. United, Patrick, they're drifting away. Look at that table right there.
Yeah, that says it all. Look at them. Manchester United in 6th place right now. Darren on 54 points. I do want to give huge credit, though, let's be fair, to Arsenal, right? And their head coach, Mikel Arteta. The Gunners in 4th place right now. We got Tottenham, Spurs kicking off at Brentford in around 24.5 minutes from right now. How do you assess the battle between these two North London rivals for Champions League footy next season?
Well, you know, until last week, Arsenal appeared to be drifting away themselves with 3 successive defeats, appearing to hand the advantage to Spurs in the race for top 4 Champions League football. But then Spurs surprisingly beaten last weekend by Brighton. Arsenal taking their chance to bounce back by winning a few days later at Chelsea, an under-strength Chelsea. And their win against United today means they are the ones in control in 4th place in the Premier League. You could argue Arteta in the picture there and his players have been fortunate to meet Chelsea and United at a bad time for both clubs. But to be fair, that's not United's problem. They've cashed in. Now Spurs know they've got zero room for manoeuvre. It tees up tonight's game, as you've been saying, very nicely against a Brentford side who've won their last 3 and 5 of their last 6, inspired by a certain Christian Eriksen, formerly of Tottenham. We all know about him. Look, it's going to be friends reunited, as we all know, but after the love, Spurs, Harry Kane, Son Heung-min and all of the other players in that team are going to have to be ruthless if they want to keep that Champions League dream alive.
Yep, Darren, spot on, as always. So much to play for still, and thank you so much for your time today. Wishing you and your family all the very best. Thanks, Darren.
You too, Patrick.
Well, if you enjoy Instagram, you'll absolutely love all things CNN Sport there on IG. Compelling photos, videos, and the big-name interviews as well. And plenty of backstories, behind-the-scenes access to how we put it all together here at CNN Sport. Right there, Instagram.com/CNN Sport for your viewing pleasure right now. We're going to head to Italy next up in a case of catch him if you can, a sprint to the finish line ahead of this weekend's Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And a short while ago, we learned just who secured pole position ahead of tomorrow's big race. Stick around.
Brilliant battles. It has been replicated here in the sprint.
Hello, welcome back to you. Now, when it comes to Formula One, there is no doubt those sprint races they have ahead of the Grand Prix itself really are a thrill a minute. Earlier today, no exception at Imola, ahead of Sunday's Emilia-Romagna showdown in Italy. This was very exciting stuff at this season's championship leader. Pick it up here, Ferrari. Charles Leclerc had his sights firmly set on getting the job done this Saturday. The man from Monaco had the lead with 2 laps to go, but world champion Max Verstappen, who'd started out in pole in his Red Bull but lost the lead, hitting back in style when it mattered most, then powering his way into the mix ahead to seal the victory. It's the young Dutch star who has pole position for the start of the main event tomorrow. Right here in the United States, excitement levels rising for basketball fans as the NBA postseason takes center stage, and no shortage of drama, including right here in Atlanta last night as the Hawks battled it out with the Miami Heat. Over to you, Coy Wire.
Yeah, Atlanta needed this one, Pat. Down 0-2 in the series to the Heat. No team's ever come back from 3 down. Playing at home, this went down to the wire. The game was delayed about 40 minutes due to a suspicious package outside the building, but all was good. Not all good for the Hawks, though, when the Heat got hot in the third, going on a 21-0 run spanning 4 minutes time. Biggest such run in the last 25 postseasons. That set up a dogfight of a fourth. Trae Young barking, trying to overcome a 16-point deficit. P.J. Tucker swinging right back, clutch from the corner to give Miami the lead by 1. But this is the moment, Pat. 10 seconds to go, and Ice Trey not going to be denied, letting the floater fly, sealing it. The 8-seeded Hawks fought through 2 play-in tournament wins just to get here, not giving up, getting a 111-110 win. How'd you do it, Trey?
We've been here before. I mean, we've been in tough moments, going through adversity, even through this season. So I think we know how to battle back and find ways to win.
We had a 1-point lead, and basically under 20 seconds. And Young got a little bit of an angle and was able to hit a tough runner. I mean, he makes that look easy. That's not like the easiest shot going full speed and with the touch, and felt like it hit every part of the rim.
Phoenix Suns, best record this season, but without superstar Devin Booker battling an injured hamstring now. They dropped the last game at home, now on the road in a sea of red in New Orleans with the series tied at 1. This one gets ugly. Jackson Hayes ejected in the second after bulldozing Jay Crowder. This is a straight-up mosh pit maneuver here, Pat. That might have been the motivation the Suns needed. Now playing with a chip on their shoulder. Future Hall of Famer Chris Paul taking over in the 4th. He scores 19 of his 28 points in the quarter, and he's serving more dishes than a diner. 14 assists in Game 3. The entire Pelicans team had 17. CP3's 28 dishes without a turnover in a 2-game span is now an NBA postseason record. Suns take the series lead, finding a way to get it done without Devin Booker.
Yeah, we got a good group that's been together. We sort of battle tested when it comes to things. We went through an incredible run last year. We still building. We're just gonna keep trying to piece this thing together. You know what I mean? Next man up.
And what would the defending champion Bucks do facing the Chicago Bulls without all-star forward Chris Middleton out the rest of the first round with a sprained MCL? Next man up. Grayson Allen leading all scorers with 22. Bobby Portis knocking down the buzzer-beating 3 at the end of the 3rd, rocking his new spectacles, making a spectacle of the moment, dancing a Pat just like you after a Saturday show. Portis scoring 18 points. Even Giannis Antetokounmpo's big brother Thanasis getting in on the thrashing. How you like that, little bro? The Bucks used 31 different starting lineups this season, Pat, and adapt once again, taking the Bulls by the horns, regaining control of the series 2-1 as they win this one by 30 points. Thinking Milwaukee's going to be just fine in this series. Lots of playoff action Saturday, 4 games. Can Philly sweep their series with the Raptors? And how will the Nets, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, how are they going to respond down 2-0 now in their series with the Celtics?
Thanks to Koy, and yes, the dancing comes later tonight on the discotheque floor. Much more to come as we reflect on another 5-star performance from Barcelona in the Women's Champions League, and we'll give you almost 92,000 reasons why last night really was one for the history books. Stay with us. We're back with round 2 action from the LPGA Tour's LA Open. The third round just underway a few moments ago in Southern California. Well, how do you follow up a double bogey? Why, with an eagle, of course. South Korean star Se-Young Kim's huge putt, good for a 3 on the par 5 15th. Wonderful touch on the green there. You'd be hard-pressed, to find faster greens than those at the Wilshire Country Club this week. Japan's Nasa Hataoka playing it perfectly on number 9, her finishing hole on Friday. She's joint leader on 7 under par. Tied with the current Rolex world number 1, Jin Young Ko, the round of the day for the 26-year-old from Seoul. A sizzling 7 under 64. Ko seeking her 7th win on the LPGA circuit in the past calendar year. Now, the Men's PGA Tour, a team event right now down in New Orleans where you might find some wildlife that may or may not be to the liking of golf fans or even the players. Sergio Garcia, his ball ending up a few feet from an alligator. And the Spaniard trying in vain to get the creature to go away. He couldn't, and with the gator watching on closely. Garcia holding his nerve to chip beautifully. He and teammate, though, Tommy Fleetwood, did miss the cut, though. The alligator not amused. Keeping a close eye on things. Friday, witnessing another extraordinary night at the home of an absolutely extraordinary team. Barcelona's women's team, the reigning European football champions, have played 40 matches this season across all competitions. How many have they won? 40. Quite incredible, and there's more. The attendance at the Estadio Camp Nou last night, a staggering 91,648 for the Champions League semi-first leg with the Germany's team. Wolfsburg, the largest crowd ever for a women's match, surpassing the 91,553 Barca also set last month in the quarterfinals against their rivals Real Madrid. A dream start in this one for the hosts, who opened the scoring in just a 3rd minute of play thanks to the determination of Aitana Bonmatí. No mistake, 1-0 Barcelona. And the Barcelona lead would soon be doubled thanks to some sublime skill from Norwegian star Caroline Graham Hansen, who actually spent 5 years with Wolfsburg before moving to Catalonia. Terrific composure and a wonderful finish. This was all rather one-sided, I have to say, in the end. And 2 would become 3. Jennifer Hermoso keeping her cool just past the half-hour mark. And it was 4-0 Barcelona before even 38 minutes were on the clock. The FIFA Player of the Year, Alexia Putellas, 1 of 2 on the night for her. 5-1 Barca, the final score, in front of another record-breaking, a massive crowd there.
Nos deja sin palabras. Yo creo, sinceramente, que a medida que vaya pasando.
It's spectacular. It leaves us speechless. In a few years, we will be more aware of the magnitude of living a day like this.
Well, those 2 strikes from Putellas taking her done to a competition, leading 10 goals now. Extraordinary stuff. On Sunday, the most successful club in tournament history, the 7-time winners Lyon, taking on their huge French rivals PSG. Ahead on World Sport, we're 1-on-1 with the undisputed king of chess. Why, when it comes to defending his world championship crown, though, Magnus Carlsen's next move may not be so clear-cut. Stay with us. Of chess, Magnus Carlsen, the all-conquering Norwegian, has been the reigning world champion since 2013, and for many, he can rightly already lay claim to being the greatest of all time. But this week at the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour in his homeland, a case of unfinished business as he prepares to take on India's 16-year-old phenom Pragg, who beat Carlsen earlier this year. The event taking place amid continuing speculation over whether the 31-year-old will continue to defend his world title moving forward. World Championship games can last hours and often end in ties because mistakes are so rare. Earlier, I spoke with Magnus Carlsen to see just what the future holds for him. So the big question, will you defend your world title again? What can you tell us?
Yeah, so the short answer is I don't know, but fairly unlikely.
Okay, fairly unlikely. So is that a no?
No, it's not a no. It's it's a less than 50% chance.
Okay, so give us some insight then. If not, why not? Because we see you as this all-conquering star, the man who swept all before him. Why would you not go on and add to your great collection of world titles?
Short answer is I don't like it. I don't like the World Championship matches. I haven't enjoyed it, and last time I played not to win, but I played not to lose. And I don't think that's sustainable, basically, for me. So I will try to do.
Really express here. You use the words "you don't like it." The enjoyment's gone, right? Am I reading that correctly? And also a lack of motivation. Really?
Yeah, I love playing chess, so I'm not going to stop playing chess anytime soon. But the World Championship is different, and it kind of always has been.
What needs to change then? What needs to change? Spell it out for us.
No, I'm not looking to change it. I've been very vocal in the past about complete changes to the World Championship, making it a yearly event and abolishing these long matches. But the chess community, the system as it is now, so I'm not particularly looking to take that fight again. If somebody's going to change it, it's gonna probably have to come from somebody else.
Do you still love chess, or has the passion gone a bit?
No, I love playing, especially quicker chess, rapid and blitz. Still love to play, and I still enjoy playing classical. I played only one tournament this year, but that was a great experience, very interesting. So I'm always going to love chess, but that doesn't mean I have to play the World Championship.
Is it just the length of the games then, of the matches itself?
Yeah, it's everything around the preparation, and also the fact that that's the one tournament you cannot lose, which is a massive burden to bear every time.
Is there pressure? Is there a lot of pressure involved that we can't relate to, that you experience, that you can't ever expect anyone else to relate to?
I played my first match. I'd read about it. I heard from others that it was going to be more intense than anything that I'd done before in chess. But I couldn't believe that the difference was so big. But yeah, I think you kind of have to experience it.
Thanks to Magnus. There's some interesting insights indeed. Busy day ahead this Saturday. Can PSG men's team clinch the Ligue 1 crown? We'll get to that a little later on this day when World Sport returns at 10 p.m. tonight for viewers across Central Europe, 4 p.m. for our viewers right here in the US Eastern Time. Do join us for that if you can. Have a great weekend. Stay with CNN. Bye for now.
They are some of nature's most ferocious predators.
The first time I heard a snow leopard roar, it was just sheer wildness.
Now, their biggest threat is us. Shafkat Hussain has been working to protect snow leopards in his native Pakistan for over 20 years. An environmental anthropologist and conservationist, he is on a mission to help resolve human-wildlife conflict.
Human beings have really altered the very fabric of what we call nature. If we keep ignoring those beings and their needs, nature will strike back.
As our guest editor for this show, he has chosen 4 stories across the world of big cats under threat and the extraordinary people finding new ways for us to coexist before it's too late. I'm Bill Weir. This region of northern Pakistan is home to 3 of the highest mountain ranges on Earth. It's a place our guest editor knows well.
When you go further, higher up or deeper into the heart of the mountains, there is a very good chance that a snow leopard might walk right in front of me.
Rolex Awards laureate Shafkat Hussain has been coming here for over 2 decades in search of an elusive predator. One that remains just out of reach.
In the last 25 years, I've never seen a snow leopard out in the wild.
Hussain is a professor of anthropology.
I wonder what they would do if they had, all this new social media technology, right? Because just like we human beings, we are always connecting. And you can see the snow leopard, doing the same by leaving all these marks in their territory. Whether it's a spray or leaving their cheek hair, as if these cats are trying to communicate with other cats in this big, vast, and empty landscape.
Out here, dinner looks like this. The screw-horned wild goat, known as markhor, along with other mountain mammals. Hussain says that without top predators like snow leopards, these prey species could explode in population, numbers big enough to throw off the entire landscape.
The rangeland might be degraded, overgrazed. That would then trigger soil erosion and land erosion, and in mountainous area would trigger landslides.
But snow leopards and other predators also take advantage of easier prey at the expense of local communities. This video taken by a local man in a nearby region shows the devastation this can cause.
These predators really brings a huge economic loss for these people. So then they retaliate by attacking and killing these predators.
As an environmental anthropologist,
their main demand is that if we think that these beautiful predators are public property, then state and public should do something about the cost that these animals incur. Since 1999, we have set up close to 20 small micro-insurance programs where local people get compensated for their losses.
Building predator-proof enclosures also helps reduce attacks on livestock.
Ultimately, you can manage animals, but unless we get the human equation side right, it's very difficult to sustain any conservation effort in the long run.
Snow leopards also face another long-term threat, climate change, making the ice retreat, destroying their habitat, inch by inch.
We cannot ignore that our lives are intertwined with many other lives that exist in nature. We think that in our area, we can claim that snow leopard population is stable. I hope that in the years to come, snow leopard sighting will become a everyday phenomenon.
On another continent, another big cat is facing a similar conflict with its neighbors, with deadly consequences.
Lion killing is kind of weaved into cultural status. So how do we undo that?
Coming up, for one of the most significant lion populations left on the planet, enlisting the help of a secretive Tanzanian tribe could be a key to their survival. Sunrise on the edge of Ruaha National Park. Here in central Tanzania, livestock is life.
Our tribe believes livestock is part of the family, and we cannot live without them.
Another day brings another deadly threat. Stefano Asicheka is part of the Barabig, a little-known tribe with a long history with lions.
I grew up in a family of nomads. We lived amongst lions throughout my childhood, and I learned how dangerous they are. In our tribe, our customs and tradition raised us to have pride in killing a lion as a young man. And we are made to believe that once you kill one, it at least reduces the threat.
Traditionally, young warriors like this would gain rewards and status from killing lions. Part of the Lion Defenders program, Asicheka is showing them ways to protect the tribe while preserving the pride.
Lion defenders work in the village areas, and their task is to survey the borders early in the morning for lion tracks and to inform herders of the safety grazing areas.
The Lion Defenders are part of the Ruaha Carnivore Project, founded by Amy Dickman in 2009. When she first came here 4 years previously, things were bad.
It was the highest rate of lion killing that had been detected in East Africa in modern times. Lions have disappeared from over 90% of their historical range.
She said she had to work hard to gain the tribe's trust.
But it was extremely difficult because everyone said to us the Barabeg will not engage with conservationists. And for sure, the first 2 years, people refused to engage. We said, we are just here to find out why you're killing these lions, and if there's a way you could achieve whatever you achieve through it, through conservation rather than killing.
And eventually, persistence paid off.
They really opened up to us, and since then it's really been a transformative relationship in working with them for conservation. But we certainly know that the lion killings have decreased by over 70% in the core area that we're working in.
Rather than offering compensation for the loss of livestock, here, the doctors and vets.
We'd love to collaborate with you guys because they need.
Dickman and her team have joined forces with other conservation projects in Kenya and Zambia to form a larger nonprofit, Lion Landscapes.
It really can be a way of uplifting people and making sure that wildlife is a way to get people out of poverty as well.
Asicheka also gives tours of the park to help his tribe see wildlife from a new perspective.
Many people love seeing animals. Even the locals who used to hunt them want to see the lions. They feel a sense of ownership and get to understand the right reasons why we are protecting lions.
Our guest editor, Shafkat Hussain, says that here, once again, listening to local people is key to conservation.
Amy has done a wonderful job by incorporating, local people and asking them how to, resolve this threat that lions face.
Lions also face a wider threat: poaching. It's a global industry with a devastating impact on big cats around the world, especially the endangered Indo-Chinese tiger. Up next, this country is fighting back. This lush tropical forest canopy in northwest Thailand is hiding a rare endangered species. It is one of the last bastions for the Indo-Chinese tiger, poached to the brink of extinction for their fur and use in traditional medicine. This iconic species has all but disappeared from much of its range. Almost everywhere, in fact, except for here. Hue Ka King Wildlife Sanctuary is part of Thailand's Western Forest Complex, almost 7,000 square miles of protected jungle. Fertile ground for tigers. Another way to track them? Follow your nose.
Basically, tiger will spray to mark their territories, to tell other tigers this is their homes.
Jean Barome works for the Wildlife Conservation Society, a nonprofit that partnered with the Thai Department of National Parks, Wildlife, and Plant Conservation in a project training park rangers to reduce poaching here since 2005. Together, they have developed the Smart Patrol System. It's a combination of boots on the ground, camera traps, and data collection to monitor signs of wildlife and potential threats. Armed and trained in self-defense, these park rangers are prepared for encounters with poachers. And unlike other protected areas in Thailand, there have been no incidents of poaching here since 2013, according to the Wildlife Conservation Society. They've used camera traps to open a window into the secret life of tigers and found that numbers have more than doubled here over the past 15 years to over 60.
Yesterday.
And this watering hole deep in the forest has become a day spa for tigers. Somewhere to rest, relax, and rendezvous until they eventually make room for some other forest residents, like the Asiatic black bear, Asian elephant, and wild boar.
Tiger is the top predator of the food chain in ecosystem. So if we are successful in conserving tiger, that means we can protect many other endangered species.
And as John Barome says, big cats need big food.
For one adult tiger, it needs at least 50 sambar deers a year to feed them.
2022 is the lunar year of the tiger, marking a deadline set in 2010 by 13 countries to double their wild tiger populations. These efforts show that with the right tools, success is possible, says our guest editor, Shafqat Hussain.
The case in Thailand shows that if you empower rangers, you can significantly reduce poaching.
For example, Hue Khai Khang.
Growing up surrounded by forest in rural Belize, Reynold Call heard stories of an animal, sacred and fearsome.
I'm a Kekchi Maya, one of the 3 Maya tribes in Belize. So I would go in the forest at a very young age, and when I saw those big jaguar tracks, it usually gave me a fear in my heart.
Now Call's job is to track and protect these animals.
These are ancient Maya drawings. The jaguar is the symbol for strength and might.
It's a passion that's more than skin deep.
These tattoos are from actual jaguar patterns. This one is from a jaguar that we call Romeo. It has a heart shape. It's part of me now.
Call is the manager of Runaway Creek Nature Reserve in central Belize. It's part of a crucial wildlife trail called the Maya Forest Corridor, which connects protected habitats in the north and south of the country. Corridors like this offer a lifeline for far-roaming jaguars to more prey, mates, and territory. Today, Cal's working with Emma Sanchez of Panthera, a global wildcat conservation organization, and they are on the prowl for jaguars. Conservation experts say that jaguar populations are declining across their range from Mexico to Argentina. But not here, says Sanchez.
We consider Belize a stronghold for jaguar population because they're found in all of the protected areas and even outside the protected areas. Right. So I'm gonna aim it towards there.
Panthera has tracked their presence using the usual camera traps, but also with GPS collars. Only after they've been tranquilized, of course. It's a process not for the faint-hearted, but it provides valuable data and samples for genetic testing.
Populations of wildlife need genetic diversity to jaguars of the southern part of Belize. And that means that wildlife need to find their way through that tiny sliver of forest.
Once surrounded by jungle, the Maya Forest Corridor is now a bottleneck, less than 6 miles wide. Over the past 10 to 15 years, biologist Elma Kay has seen much of the forest chopped away.
Imagine you're getting squeezed on both sides, right? It's mostly due to large-scale mechanized monocrop or agriculture that's taking place. The last remaining gateway for those animals.
Kay has been working with a coalition of local and international supporters to buy up patches of Belize for conservation.
We are here at the Cox Lagoon wetland.
Protected. She is hopeful that one day, this whole precarious patchwork of jaguar habitat will be safe from destruction.
Hope is the last thing to keep you standing. We have to get up and do the things that we want to see happen.
Big cat conservationist and our guest editor for this show, Shafqat Hussain, says a joined-up approach like this can have real impact.
Ultimately, what you really need to protect is the habitat. And if the habitat is there, then the animals will be there.
My hope for Belize's jaguars is that they survive so that our younger generations will be able to appreciate them.
Those younger generations will inherit a changing world, one where human adaptation remains key to all of our survival.
Humans need to understand that we share our space together with other wildlife.
I think a real adaptation is needed at the level of our thinking.
I always remain hopeful that, that we can effect change.
The health of our planet and these magnificent creatures depends on a new vision. So changing how we see and protect these big cats could offer us all a glimpse at a better future.